All right, there it is. The national championship in the books. You guys stay awake for it? It's one of those where it was a crap game and then it got close at the end, so a bunch of people probably checked out after halftime or third quarter. Welcome in. It's a Tuesday right here on The Fan, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan. Check us out online, 1075thefan.com. We have the YouTube stream as well. Appreciate Corbin being here early this morning. There's Mark Dighton over there. I'm Andy Sweeney. No KB today. He is on his way back from the national title game.
What a sad flight that's about to be.
Well, I mean, it is what it is. They knew going in they were 8-9 point underdogs in the game. So several things. You know, KB did mention to us that he said he was going to do a phoner. And I think that was only if Notre Dame won the national title. Don't you feel that way? We didn't hear anything about that yesterday when he got off with us.
Yeah, someone asked, like, are you going to call Kevin? I'm like, I feel like if I call him at this point, it'll get forwarded.
Well, I mean, think about it, too. You get out after the game. I bet he had to wait 2.5 hours to get an Uber to go 5 miles back to his Airbnb.
He's already complaining about his boarding section and all that stuff.
He's already
pissed.
National title game in the books. Ohio State wins your national title. The first year that we had the expanded college football playoff, so we'll dive into that as we go today. Obviously, the Colts, they hire Sweet Lou. Lou Anarumo gets the job, defensive coordinator. Several thoughts on that as we go this morning. And, hey, we're still going to talk to Rick Carlisle today, who is over in Paris. It's a 6-hour difference. You guys know that? It's a 6-hour difference. So over there was about 1 o'clock over there, 7 o'clock here. So we'll talk with Pacers head coach. Obviously, they've won 8 out of 9. A couple games over there against a Spurs team who is bad. But Wemby is awesome.
Yes, he is.
And that's basically the best way to talk about them. So we'll dive into that as we go. He joins us at 8 o'clock. We haven't talked to Mike DeCourcy yet this college basketball season. How did we get to January without talking to Mike DeCourcy?
I think there's plenty of Colts
drama going on. The hell's our problem?
Plenty of Colts drama.
I would say just a little bit.
Yeah, I can't wait to get his thoughts on what's going on in Bloomington, obviously.
They got the big win over the weekend.
Yeah,
we didn't even talk about
going
it.
on there, and then you got Purdue going on. So, yeah, it'll be interesting. And then just his thoughts overall. Like, he's a Steelers fan. There's talk that maybe a Justin Fields or something could be in Colts blue this next season.
They're going to get Aaron Rodgers. You know,
get out of here.
They limp it one year at a time like the Colts used to.
They get Aaron Rodgers, I might storm out of this.
They're going to get Aaron Rodgers. That's where he's going to go. So we'll dive into that. And then Mo Egger from Cincinnati, who is also on the Bengals radio network. He has been following Lou Anarumo, obviously, his entire career. So we'll talk with him coming up in the 9 o'clock hour, pop quiz, and all the normal hijinks. Before we dive into what the Colts did yesterday, just national championship game fodder from last night. I don't know if you guys gave up at halftime. What was it at halftime? 21-7.
21-7, yeah.
And you know what's interesting about this game? And this is, I thought last night was a good night and a bad night for Marcus Freeman. I don't know if that's possible. Obviously, Notre Dame, and I would imagine, Mark, still the most people we have listening to us, probably Notre Dame fans. I would, Ohio State fans are everywhere, okay? We get it. And by the way, I know KB's going to be here, and he was wearing his green last night. There were no Notre Dame fans in attendance last night. I was stunned how dominant Ohio State penetrated that stadium. I know that's an odd way to put it. It had to be 75-25 last night. And I give Marcus Freeman, I know this sounds like a backhanded compliment, okay? I give Freeman a little bit of credit last night. And listen, I know you're going to laugh at this because we have seen that game before.
Uh-huh.
In fact, if you go back, and I did this last night, the years go by. And, even if you go back to 2000, just go back 10 years or so. Go back to 2014. We've had like 3 title games that have been any good.
Yeah, it's been a while.
I mean, the national title game a lot of times is a stinker. Last year, TCU looked like the JV, and Michigan obviously steamrolled them. Do you remember 2022? Corbin's looking at me. Do you remember 2022? Yeah, Georgia won 65-7 over TCU. Washington, I apologize, last year. I mean, do you remember 2021? It was a 15-point game. Do you remember 2020? Alabama beat Ohio State 52-24. The reason I bring that up is that they scored before half. Mark, it's 21-7.
Mm-hmm.
You come out the second half, they hit the big play. That is go-to-bed time.
Yeah.
That is and it's been go-to-bed time for the other team. It hasn't just been, well, I'm not going to watch any more of this. It's basically over. It's over. The other team knows it's over, and they're dead. And that's not what happened last night. Listen, I know it's big-time football. I know you want to win. Notre Dame had multiple opportunities to not only make that close, and they made it an 8-point game, but make that truly uncomfortable. And that's why I was left last night, Mark, with it's a good night for Marcus Freeman because his team did not pack it away. They did not pack it away. The problem is I thought he made a couple just absolutely boneheaded decisions. If you didn't stay up for it, they missed a field goal. It's 31-15. You're inside the 10-yard line. And on fourth down, do you remember what KB, when he scoffed at me yesterday? When I thought, Mitch Jeter might miss a kick?
Yep.
You remember that, don't you, in the 9 o'clock hour?
I called for the Jeter walk-off.
Yeah. And
shows what I know.
And Mitch Jeter doinks, what was it, a 26-yard field goal, a 25-yard field goal? Just kicking it there made absolutely no sense. And obviously, the decision was rather idiotic in hindsight when your kicker goes out there and he doinks one off the left goalpost. But there was that, and then the final play, one of the final plays of the game, you got him in a fourth down with what, maybe 3 minutes to go in the game. Ohio State has run these quarterback draws, and you go man coverage, no safety help with Jeremiah Smith.
Nope.
And the poor corner, Gray, I think it was playing 12. He was playing 15. It looked like Gus Bradley was out there as defensive coordinator, playing 15 yards off. And Jeremiah Smith wins that one-on-one battle because that's what he's going to do because he's a great player. And it's a first down that ends the game. They get their field goal, and the game is over. The other funny thing, Mark, and I know you have thoughts from last night watching it, it's 31-23. What are you guys thinking? What are you guys thinking? Come on, Mark. What do you think?
Like, come on. Can we make this? Can we get one more score here for Notre Dame? Can we do it? But at least the overhead.
No, that's the thing. It's 31-23, and what is it? It's an 8-point game. Yeah. So at that point,
Vegas knows everything.
At that point, everyone that had Notre Dame was, at that point, you would won the money if you had Notre Dame, and it didn't happen. So. Yeah. Ohio State wins. It is what it is. I feel bad for KB, but it looks like he had a pretty good seat for the game.
I said he still has to do he's like, if they win, I'll do the Speedo thing. I was like, we've pushed the Speedo thing so much.
Yeah, but I think he wants. I think he wants to do the Speedo thing.
I think he does too.
I think he wants the attention of doing the Speedo thing. And he also wants to show that he's the number one Notre Dame fan, like more so than Jimmy Cook and more so than thousands of people in the Indiana Indy metro area. That's my guess.
Instead of doing a victory lap, you do like a sad walk around the circle in the Speedo, we can stand on the balcony like John Cusack and say anything, hold the boombox up and play the fight song.
You would agree,
though,
he wants to go around the circle in a Speedo.
He's got the Speedo. What else is he going to do? He's got to pay this off.
There's no other chance he's going to have to do it. Now, he wouldn't do anything for the Colts, but the Colts are so damn far away from winning the Super Bowl.
The only time he's doing it again is if Notre Dame basketball gets a number one seed in the tournament.
Yeah,
so
well, it's not happening this year.
So he needs to bust it out when he gets back in town.
They better be worried about being 500 and making the NIT at this point.
I thought the game was fine. I was glad that Notre Dame brought it a little closer, but it was kind of writing on the wall at halftime. Once they came out in the third quarter and got that long drive and touchdown in 5 plays, like, all right.
Yeah. But it wasn't 44-16.
No. But
that's what it could have been.
You're not incorrect. The last competitive national championship game.
Oh yeah, goes
back to 2017 with Alabama Georgia, where it's 26-23 in overtime.
I told you.
Everything else is in the 40s,
I told
and 50s and 60s. Yeah, it's been very one-sided for a while.
And again, you know what? This is how I always think, because we've been talking about KB going, and I'll let him tell the story on how he got in. Me and Mark don't truly totally know. We have hints. We have theories. But
I sent a picture that he had a stitched up kidney and that he had donated the kidney in a bathtub.
Can you imagine? And the tickets went from they kept growing as you got closer to game time.
Yeah, they did not go down at all.
Can you imagine spending $3,500 if you're a Notre Dame fan and you're down 28-7?
I would have just pulled up a chair at the varsity and I would have grabbed a beer and a burger and I would have watched it there.
Oh, goodness. So, national title game. Listen, I thought the college football playoff expansion was a success, and I do love all the people talking about how it was a success. Yeah, we know. It's why we begged you for years to do this, because the more teams that got interest, it was going to be fun. So last night, pretty good game all in all. You had to stay up late, though. You had to stay up, 10:45, 11 o'clock to kind of get the payoff of, hey, this is kind of a close game. And if Ohio State doesn't make a play or two here, Riley Leonard's going to have a couple minutes to get the ball back and do something with it. But ultimately, that did not happen. The other thing quickly, and we'll talk more about this coming up at 7:35, Lou Anarumo gets the job. Mm-hmm. With the Colts defensive coordinator. And that's, I want to say, Mark, that was probably one of the first couple names we talked about a couple weeks ago. Yep. Steve Wilks. I think Lou and Steve Wilks were kind of together of the first couple names that were brought up.
And Dennis Allen.
And then Dennis Allen, he's going to Chicago. We got to get into that. Your boy Ben Johnson. You got to be happy.
I'm a happy boy.
This is the guy you wanted. Any other name I brought up to you, you would not listen to any other name but Ben Johnson.
It was Ben Johnson, and then it was, the rankings. It was a big gap, and then there was rankings 2 through 5.
Yeah, but you don't get what you got what you want here.
I did.
So I mean I feel good for you. We'll see.
I was in a Target parking lot picking up an order for Ashley, and the news came across my Twitter, and I said some profanities, and I banged on the ceiling of my
So you
roof.
hit the ceiling of the roof of the car.
And then as that happened,
good for you.
the Target employee knocked on the window and scared the bejesus out of me.
I like that.
Sorry, sir, I was celebrating something.
I've never done the Target curbside pickup, I don't think. I'm trying to think if we did it back in COVID, 5 years ago or whatever, but I honestly don't remember. So Anarumo gets hired, and here's what I would say. I remain skeptical because it's this franchise. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that is an out-of-bounds take to have. Now, over the last however many hours, 18 hours, 20 hours, that there has been reaction to this, you get the normal reaction that people go and they dig down on the 2 years. It was a 21 and 22 where the Bengals defense and the Bengals themselves, they walked into Kansas City and they beat Kansas City and they made the Super Bowl. But there's other years, too. And I think that's him. He was there for, 6 years in Cincinnati?
Yeah, 2019.
There's 4 not so great years, and then there's 2 years that I would consider to be pretty great. And I think therein lies the crux of the issue. Do I think Lou Anarumo can be a good DC here? I do. But make no mistake about it, this is the very beginning of what needs to be a heavy revamping of this defense. In other words, a lot of times this happens that a coach comes in and you make a couple moves, but a coach comes in and you think there's going to be this magic formula. And for some guys, that happens, okay? And then for other guys, they need some ingredients. And Nate Atkins wrote about it in the Star this, last night into this morning, Mark, where if they give him, and what they gave him in Cincinnati the last couple years was a subpar defense. Mm-hmm. If you give him a subpar defense here in Indy, you're going to get a subpar defense.
Yep.
You're going to get a bunch of these statistical categories.
Lower third.
Where your defense is in the 20s.
Yep.
And so to me, I'm fine with the hire. Listen, there are other names. I really didn't think they were going to go after Wink Martindale. Personality-wise, I didn't see it here.
I just wanted that rakestraw car ride. That's what I wanted.
Dennis Allen was the hottest name. He got to choose where he wanted to go. Mm-hmm. So Dennis Allen, obviously, most likely going to go to Chicago. So I'm fine with the hire. We'll dig into more numbers in Cincinnati. But make no mistake about it, this is not a, hey, we're going to draft a safety, we're going to pick up a middle-of-the-road linebacker, we'll let EJ Speed walk, and we'll be good to go because we have a new defensive coordinator. That is not the case. This needs to be a start of a systematic change. Now you got better coaching, and now you need better players as well. Your thoughts on Lou getting the job?
Well, I did more of a deep dive on Lou Anarumo than I expected because that national championship game was kind of going to the birds. So I was like, I'm going to go down the wormhole of Lou Anarumo. So I would say if you're a Colts fan today and you're like, who is this Lou Anarumo guy? I don't really know much about the Bengals defense. Yes, he's not had some good seasons, but he's also more aggressive than Gus Bradley, which isn't saying much. But he's more aggressive. He disguises more looks than Gus Bradley ever did. So I think he's going to give opposing offenses more things to think about than a Gus Bradley defense did.
Yeah.
So it'll be pretty interesting. We'll dive through the numbers later, but he's more blitz heavy. He's got more of that going on. He was a finalist for a head coaching job when they hired Jonathan Gannon in Arizona. So that's something to consider too, that he is viewed in the NFL as a potential future head coach.
When Cincinnati had it going for those couple years, he was a hot name.
Yeah.
He took many jobs.
They had
many interviews.
They went to the Super Bowl. They had a top 5 defense in points and yards allowed and everything like that. So he has shown signs that he can get it together. He can get a top 5 defense, but you have to surround him with some players. And we'll get into it a little bit later, maybe 25 minutes or so. The Kelsey brothers, I don't listen to their podcast very often, but I went down the wormhole. So I found out that they had some pretty interesting thoughts on Lou Anarumo and everything like that. So we'll dive into that.
Oh, we have to do the Kelsey brothers.
Yeah.
We have to listen to the Kelsey brothers.
Yes, we do.
All right.
Yes, we do.
Let's take a break. Coming up on the other side, your morning checkdown, national title game. What did Marcus Freeman say after the game? We have Purdue basketball back in action tonight. Appreciate you hanging out with us. We got you to 10 o'clock. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan. All right, Rick Carlisle going to join us coming up at 8 o'clock. Let's jump into it. Your morning check down here on the Fan on this Tuesday. National championship game in the books, I should say. Corbin whispered in our ears before we came back, I'm glad I had Ohio State minus 8.5. He's not the only one. 34-23, that's your final last night. We'll dive into it more as we go this morning. Notre Dame down 21-7 at halftime. They come roaring back in the fourth quarter. A couple different opportunities to really make it a game, but Ohio State just too much. Post-game, here's Marcus Freeman.
We obviously didn't play the way we needed to get the outcome we want. But as I said to the guys in the locker room, there's not many words to say when everybody's hurting. I'm just proud of them. I'm proud of what they've done. I'm proud of who they are, the way they represent themselves, and it's just an honor to be on this journey with them. I mean, there's going to be a lot of guys, seniors, that this was their final game with Notre Dame football, but they've left this place a better place.
Yeah, 14-2, Ohio State finishes the season. National champions there. Will Howard, I thought he made himself mark some money last night. Had a couple nice throws. He also ran the ball 16 times. I did not expect him to run the ball that much. Riley Leonard, 17 carries. Leonard was able to throw later in the game, but obviously 34-23 your final. So congratulations to the Buckeyes.
All that quarterback running, I kept thinking that Chris Ballard's like, that's what Anthony Richardson should be doing.
Well, he'd get injured.
Yeah.
He'd be hurt.
Not to kick Kevin while he's down, but the rumor is that Al Golden, the defensive coordinator for Notre Dame, could be the front runner for the Bengals' open DC job. And the DC job for the Bengals is open because they let go of Lou Anarumo, who lands in Indianapolis. He is the new defensive coordinator for your Indianapolis Colts. He's been with the Cincinnati Bengals since 2019. Had a couple top 5 defenses, went to the Super Bowl, and then had some not so good years there. We'll dive into that a little bit more. On the basketball court, we're going to talk to Rick Carlisle in a little over 25 minutes from now, and he is in Paris. The Pacers are getting ready to take on the Spurs for a pair of games in France, so they'll get ready for that. And then on the college basketball hoop court, we've got the Purdue Boilermakers hosting Ohio State tonight at 7:30, while the Butler Bulldogs take on UConn at 7.
Poor Butler.
That could get ugly.
Well, I mean, the spread's 12.5, but if they do lose, it's going to be they lose 7 in a row. They're going to be 1-7. That's not going to be good. Now, I give Purdue credit, and this is what good teams do. They've won 7 in a row, and I know not all of them are great wins. I know the other night, obviously, a great win going on the road and beating Oregon. That's going to be a great win that you'll carry with you into March Madness. They're now a top 10 team in the net as we wake up this morning. So, they fought themselves up from being in the 20s to moving up. I don't know how much the net matters. It's still mid to late January, but for me, it does matter. It shows you who you beat, the quad 1 opportunities, and tonight, I think a quad 2 opportunity, if I'm not mistaken, against Ohio State. You got anything else over there?
No, that was it. It's kind of a slow night after the national championship game.
Oh, it is. It's a very slow night, and it's a very sad night. I looked at Mark, and I go, I have no open bets right now. And Mark goes, what are you going to bet football's over? Yeah. Brother, there's always something out there to bet. We got college basketball for the next 3 months.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
During COVID, I was like, I could check out the KBO. Let's see what the Korean Baseball Association
It doesn't have to
doing.
number one, we do have football games, but number 2, we got college basketball games to lose.
You got NBA.
How dare you?
The pitchers and catchers are going to report soon. So we'll get on some spring training baseball.
We'll talk with Carlisle about it, but that's going to be a fun atmosphere over there in Paris. Yeah. You saw some Olympics. You saw what that country can do. So
those ticket prices are nuts too, by the way.
Oh,
it's
like $900. Yeah, it's like $900 to get in. Let's take a break. Coming up on the other side, the one thing that Lou Anarumo needs to do immediately. Stephen Holder was on yesterday with JMV. We'll let you hear that sound, plus more national title talk. We'll do it right here. Appreciate you hanging out with us on a Tuesday on The Fan. Yeah, welcome back on a Tuesday, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan. Pacers head coach Rick Carlisle going to join us coming up at 8 o'clock. Mike DeCourcy at 8:30. Mo Egger, ESPN Radio there, and the Bengals Radio Network in Cincinnati. As Lou Anarumo fired there a couple weeks ago, obviously gets the job in Indianapolis, and we'll talk about that as we go today. Mark Dykton is so excited. He's got Ben Johnson as his head coach there with the Chicago Bears. Thank God the Lord himself, Ben Johnson, who invented offensive football, finally has a job. And then what is it?
Jealousy is an ugly color, my friend.
It is. And that's all I am is ugly and jealous every single day of my life when it comes to my sporting teams. And then Aaron Glenn, it's expected he doesn't. I love when they do this. The Jets aren't going to let him leave the building. Yeah. That's the terminology being used this morning. So it looks like Aaron Glenn and the Jets might be something that is going to happen, to which I say, God bless you, Aaron Glenn. Enjoy the 3 years of being harassed by your fan base, but it's going to be really good money to get harassed by your fan base.
My best friend who is a Lions fan and a Detroit resident, I said, I'm sorry the Lions lost, but thank you for Ben Johnson. And he was so defeated. He's like, you know what? He's like,
I think poor him.
We lost the game on Saturday because like all the coaches were already, their minds were already at their new destinations. I'm like, that's probably true. And I was like, I don't know what you're going to do, because he's like, that was our best window. And now we're going to lose Ben Johnson. We're going to lose Aaron Glenn. And Dan Campbell's going to have to start from scratch.
Remember last week when KB asked, he goes, what do you think's the best job opening? At this point, basically none of them had been filled, right? Except for the Patriots, okay? And I said it was the Bears. And everyone, I know obviously you're a fan, so it's a different emotion. And his kickback was with that ownership. And I said, yeah, because of that quarterback. Mm-hmm. That's the only reason. I bet Ben Johnson wanted to probably go to like Vegas with Brady.
Yeah.
I could see that being the case. But how do you go there with Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew as your quarterback? Listen, you got to have players. We've talked about it with Anarumo. You got to have players. It's not a team run it back and you're going to be good to go. So Ben Johnson gets the job there. Aaron Glenn looks like he may get the job. A name we haven't talked about. I bet the Jags are going to hire Liam Cohen, who's the offensive coordinator in Tampa Bay, who I covered a couple years at Kentucky. So that's why I know Liam Cohen fairly well. We should try to get him on the show. I bet I could get us Liam Cohen.
Well, let's do it.
You want to get Liam Cohen on the show?
Back up that talk, big boy. Let's go.
I may try.
We can get Liam Cohen. Yeah, I like that suggestion. Or Corbin mentioned one, and he said,
what did Corbin say?
He could see Mike McCarthy going to Jacksonville. I'm like, that makes sense too.
Listen,
that does check out.
I think Mike McCarthy was going to get the job in Chicago, but I understand the allurement with Ben Johnson.
I feel like
he's the hottest target.
He was their fallback plan if Ben Johnson said thanks, but no thanks.
I could see McCarthy sitting a year. I could see people saying, well, he's too much like Doug Peterson to be hired there in Jacksonville. I did read something that, Jacksonville was trying to get Ben Johnson, to kind of believe in their plan, but they're obsessed with keeping the GM there, Trent Baalke. Yep. And I would imagine Chicago made him feel better about that leadership situation than Jacksonville, which is not a good thing for Jacksonville, given that the Bears have been a mess.
That's not a high bar in Jacksonville.
That's the thing that's the thing about it. So, all right, so national title game in the books. One thing I was really happy about last night, Mark, and I know you're bored by the game, as was I. You start to fall asleep, and then suddenly it's a game. I just feel really good that LeBron James got to celebrate that national title, don't you? Don't you just feel great?
We're all better for it now.
Don't you think they showed LeBron James more than they showed Taylor Swift the other night?
Oh, of course.
They showed LeBron James 16 times during that game. He had his own, where they put the Buckeyes on the hat. Did you see that? Oh, so pretentious. Oh, yeah. He was getting made fun of last night. And then did you see as well, from the national title game, which we talked about earlier, we'll keep talking about it. I thought Notre Dame did a fine job not giving in. That's the best thing I can say, and kind of giving themselves a chance there at the end. Did you see the young lady who was driving Ryan Day? I didn't see the players, but I would imagine Will Howard, Jeremiah Smith, and others. Did you see her hit the wall?
No.
You haven't seen this? Okay, so they get on a golf cart. You know how these big stadiums are. You guys know in Indianapolis, there's a big stadium. And so they've golf cart them to their post-game media room so they don't have to walk hundreds of feet, okay? And are you watching it now?
I'm watching it now, yeah.
And this was
Good
Save this
grief,
one.
lady.
This was an extra long one, right? It could hold like 8 people on it. And she's driving the golf cart, and she tries to do a turn, and she thinks she can clear the wall, and she smacks right into the wall, right on the passenger side where Ryan Day's sitting, and then it got stuck, and that's what I don't know.
It looks like-
How did it get stuck? It got stuck on the wall. I guess they had to walk up there.
If you've seen Austin Powers where he gets stuck in the hallway with the cart, that's what that looks like because they can't move it.
I've never seen that
They just start
before.
laughing and walk away. Like, well, I guess that's the end of that trip.
I've never seen that before. I
She
really
smacks
haven't.
right into that thing. Oh, my God. Ryan Day goes flying.
Ryan Day, I mean, yeah, like legit. What if he hurts himself there? He wins the national title. He proves
Unbelievable.
Michigan wrong. I do love Michigan fans that are out coming out of the woodwork today. Yeah, you still lost to us.
Yeah.
Yeah, you played in a nothing bowl against Kalen DeBoer. How does that sound? Ryan Day just won the national championship. It has like a better winning percentage than Newt Rockne.
That's
I mean,
why
he does.
That's why sports rivalries are the best. You can find the little
Did you
things.
see Lou Holtz up there too?
Oh, yeah. Lou Holtz was slouched in his chair. Could not wait to get out of there.
Oh, I know Ryan Day has to be the bigger guy there, but does he? Does he? One of these little post-game
elderly
interviews?
man.
Well, maybe one of these post-game interviews. Like, I saw Lou Holtz up there. Hope Coach is doing well.
What if,
That's all I got to say.
I was kind of hoping if he did slander Lou Holtz would come from the rafters like Sting in WCW.
Oh, man.
Just come down on the drawstring. You want to talk to me in front of me, big boy?
KB's on his way back. People are asking us, like, we're the travel agent,
Oh,
okay?
yeah.
It's like, well, is KB going to get stuck in the snow that's in Atlanta?
I don't know.
It's like, I don't think so. I didn't know there was snow moving into Atlanta.
He's just bored. I know all.
Apparently
I know
there is.
He's boarding Group C, and he's not happy about it.
Oh, goodness. So he'll have...
I was like, Kevin, you're a solo flyer. They're going to take the women and children and families first, and then the single people go.
Do you wear Notre Dame garb on the way home there
you
if
better
you're him?
not. You better just
I think he does.
pull the brim down and try to get some shut-eye.
You think so?
Yeah.
I did love, we'll talk with Rick Carlisle. We got to find out how much they were able to sleep on I can't sleep on a plane. I don't know if you guys can. I wish I could.
I can, but it's not great.
I mean, there are some people that are sitting down before even takeoff. When people are bumping into you going down the aisle, they can just sit down and go to sleep. I think I've fallen asleep twice on a plane in my life. I'm 40 years old.
I try not to like recline because it's frowned upon. But like I'm hoping for a window seat so you can lean against the window. But
Right.
if you do sleep, I feel like my neck starts hurting because you're like laying in this awkward
Well, you got to
position.
get one of those neck pillows
with
they
three-
sell for
that neck
$70
pillow-
at the airport.
Yeah, the neck pillow goes to the children. Unfortunately, they take that, and I just have my coat or my hoodie.
Get one of those neck pillows and a John Grisham novel. Costs you
There you go.
$100 at the airport. All right, appreciate you hanging out with us on this Tuesday. Let's play this sound. This is from Stephen Holder yesterday. So the Colts hire Lou Anarumo, which is not a difficult name to say. But I feel like it is a difficult name to say. You know what I'm saying? You get what
There's
I'm
a lot
saying.
of A's and,
well,
yeah.
it's not a difficult name, but there's people are gonna mess it up for at least a few days. So he gets hired, 18, 20 hours ago. I don't think it's a surprise. Everything had been like, hey, we want to hire someone early to midweek this week. You really are going to start seeing things pick up now.
Mm-hmm.
Ben Johnson gets the job. Aaron Glenn probably today or early tomorrow is going to get locked in. The Jags, I would imagine, Jacksonville in the next 24, 36 hours, they're going to lock in their coach. At some point, the Saints are just going to have to hire
somebody.
Mike Kafka because that's all that's left. Will Mike McCarthy get a job? So things, the next couple days are really going to move in the NFL. So the Colts get their guy, and I think they did get their guy. I think Dennis Allen was probably the number one guy. He got to pick where he wanted to go. And I think Anarumo was probably, I think Robert Saleh probably goes back to the Niners.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see. That makes the most sense. But if he doesn't, I know the Cowboys have interviewed him a couple times, so we'll see what happens there. But I think they got the guy that they wanted, a guy that we've been talking about for the better part of a couple weeks. Stephen Holder from ESPN yesterday was on with JMV in the 5 o'clock hour, and this was one of the points I was going to make. What does Lou need to do immediately to make this defense better?
I would like to see if he can get more out of this defensive line. I still think that is clearly, without a doubt, that is their best unit on this defense. You got to find a way to get more out of that group. And there's no question they got less production out of that group than they did last year. And so what can he do? That's going to be the foremost question for me. What can he do to get more out of that unit, which is their best unit on defense? Because the cupboard is not completely bare, but they got to play better, bottom line.
Yeah, and to me, Mark, that's at the top of my list.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not only defensive line, it's front seven, it's it's almost like a buzzword, these buzzwords. It's getting pressure, it's getting sacks, it's those sorts of things. The defensive line had 28 and a half sacks last year. As a team, the feeling, 2 years ago, Mark, after the 23 season, you keep Gus Bradley, and what's the thing that everyone went to? How many sacks the team had, right? You remember that?
Yep.
It was like, well, we're like, yeah, but you're not really affecting these quarterbacks. But, Gus Bradley could rely on numbers. And last year, this past season, those numbers went away. So it was almost like what we were watching was the same as 2 years ago. But 2 years ago, they had some stats they could look at.
Mm-hmm.
This year, they
None.
didn't. And that's win-loss wise. It's a month before the end of the season, losing out on the AFC South. And I think that, to me, is number one. I'll say what I said to start the show. I remain skeptical. I do not mind saying it. Now, there's context, and here's why all of this is very... Let me tell you why this is difficult to analyze. Number one, the Bengals as a franchise, and you guys know this, are a joke of a franchise. They're a joke of a franchise that has a great quarterback and a great wide receiver. Am I wrong there? Where am I wrong there?
I would say two wide receivers, but
well,
I know we don't need to go down the T. Higgins route.
Yeah, but T. Higgins isn't. I mean, he's a free agent. Do you think
That's
they
true.
bring him back? I don't know. I mean,
no, I don't think so.
If I'm a Bengals fan, I love T. Higgins, but am I going to give all my money to two wide receivers and a quarterback? And the answer is probably not. So you're right with T. Higgins. But right now they go into next year with Burrow and Chase.
Mm-hmm.
Reason I bring that up is when he took over Anarumo in 19, they had to build that defense up.
Yep.
It took a couple seasons, and they built that defense up. And then in 2021 and 2022, I mean, they are top 10 in points per game, top 5 in points per drive. Their success rate was top 10 or 11. Their touchdown percentage was 6th in the NFL. Their red zone defense was upper half in the NFL. And if you go and you remember, they got a lot of love for what they were able to do against Patrick Mahomes. If you remember back, what was that, the 21 season, going on the road in Kansas City and getting that win. And so after building the defense, they had a couple years, Mark, to where they were a great defense. And their defense really complemented the greatness of their offense and Joe Burrow. And they were able to play that style, especially with Joe Mixon, that it's going to be cold weather. We're going to be able to run the football at you. Burrow can make those big plays. And then on the back end, we got a good defense. We have an upper-level defense. We can make, at times, Patrick Mahomes look human. And that was the story. And then Lou Anarumo, he took head coaching. Did he interview here?
I don't remember.
I thought KB mentioned that he did. He had 4 or 5 different places where, he interviewed to be a head coach. And then and this is what makes it difficult. And then the Bengals struck. And what do I mean by that? The Bengals became the Bengals. They didn't pay anybody.
They regressed.
Talent.
Lost people in free agency.
Talent left. They let specifically their secondary kind of just get rated, like Jeremy Bates is the name that people think about. And so in 2023 and 2024, I mean, 26th in points per game, 29th in points per drive, 30th in success percentage, 27th in red zone defense. The Bengals the last couple years have been a bad defense.
Yeah, lower third, like the Colts.
And this is the problem with the nuanced discussion of you have a guy that has had success, but he's done it at a place in Cincinnati that some of us, we need to remember what the Bengals historically have been. And so that's one conversation. The other conversation, and Coach Venturi, we'll play this sound later. He was on with JMV I think it was last week. Rick Venturi, who I appreciate, who I like his analysis quite a bit, and he made the point, and he's right, that it's really difficult to analyze some stuff with this Colts defense because Gus Bradley is no longer respected in the NFL to be a defensive coordinator. He's not. I mean, everybody lined up making fun of the Colts defensively by the simplistic nature in which they coach their defense. And then on top of it, they have, I mean, Mark, you would agree with this, they have fine talent, but they don't have great talent.
No.
But the talent's got to be better than what we've seen, right?
Well,
it's got to be better than Malik Willis and some of these teams being able to run the ball. It's got to be a better tackling team than this. And so this is why it's difficult. You have the Bengals factor. You have the Colts factor of what are they defensively. You have, because Gus Bradley was not a good DC here. He just wasn't. And so you kind of mix all of those things. And then, I don't know about you guys, but, to me, you got to make 4, 5, you tell me the number, big changes to this defense. Right?
Well, I mean, if you want instant change, you're going to have to do that. And whether or not
you have to, or everyone's going to get fired. I mean, that's the point here.
And that's the
no
thing.
one's going to be around. So, to me, it's a nuanced discussion. I am not against the hire. It was always, if you hired Steve Wilkes got fired in San Francisco, then he took a year off. So what's Steve Wilkes been doing, for the last year? Outside of maybe Dennis Allen and Robert Saleh, I think you are always going to get a question on what happened at the last place, because more than not, these guys end up getting fired and being the scapegoat, and that's what happened to Lou in Cincinnati.
Yeah, I'm optimistic about the hire. I'm not trying to put rose-colored glasses on this thing, because obviously the Colts don't deserve any kind of
benefit of the doubt.
Benefit of the doubt. That's the word I was looking for. But yeah, I mean, it's fine. If you've given Lou Anarumo time to develop players and you've given him players to work with, he's made it work. He had a top 5 defense when they went to the Super Bowl and whatnot. So he has shown that he can do it. Whether or not the Colts and Chris Ballard are going to actually surround him
it's a
with
great
players
question.
in free agency and in the draft begs to be the question. And on the New Heights podcast with Travis Kelce and Jason Kelce.
What's the name of it now?
New Heights. New Heights. It's
Why
very
is that the name?
popular.
Why is that the name? Well, of course it is. It's. I mean, they're going to make millions. They make millions off this podcast, don't they?
They probably do. I know some people are sick of the Kelce brothers, but they are football players that have been around. They know what they've seen. Travis Kelce especially has gone up against Lou Anarumo's defense quite a bit in Cincinnati. And when he was relieved of his duties in Cincinnati, they had a pretty interesting conversation that I think will affect the Colts going forward.
I don't know what the is going on over there. That was a wild move I did not see coming, because I thought that, from the outside, their defense was playing really good towards the end of the year.
They definitely played better. I just think Lou, I don't think they had the horses on defense that they've had in the past, and Lou got handcuffed. I don't know that it made sense. He's proven how good of a D coordinator he is with good players, but whatever.
I'm with you, dude. I'm with you. I've always respected the hell out of him.
So there you go. They said when they have the players, he's been really good. Now, the Colts have some players on defense. Do they have the players that fit Lou Anarumo's defense? Is Lou Anarumo going to come in? I mean, they obviously interviewed him. Did he talk about, I like this guy, we need to fix this in the offseason. If you want me to be able to actually fully implement my defense and we want to get this Colts defense back to where we want it to go, I need these positions addressed in the offseason via draft or via free agency. Do you think they had those discussions? They almost had to have. And is Chris Ballard saying, don't worry, we're doing whatever we can? Or is he saying, well, we can't do everything in one fell swoop? I'll be interested to see. Because obviously DeForest Buckner is a player. We all agree on that. But there's other guys around that defense, the linebacker crew, the secondary especially, that need to be addressed. Is Lou Anarumo going to be able to say, I need these guys in the draft? I'm identifying these players as guys I would like us to pursue, or in free agency I would like them to pursue. And are the Colts going to do that?
Here's what would frustrate me if I'm a Colts fan. What would frustrate me the most, and all these are good conversations, and we'll take a break here. Rick Carlisle going to join us top of the hour. What would frustrate me is you did not need to have Gus Bradley this past season as your DC.
Right. I think we all agreed that is a move that should have been done last season.
And because you waited an extra year, now everyone's ass is by the fire.
Yep.
Now everyone is feeling the heat of, could this be the last hurrah? So you bring up great points, Mark. I'm sure they had those conversations of how to utilize the talent that they have, and they have talent. You look at some of the guys on the defensive line, and you look at Kenny Moore, and I think Nick Cross is a good player, and Zaire Franklin has led the NFL in tackles and has been a Pro Bowl player. They're not devoid of talent. But this is not a you get 3 years to turn things around.
No.
This offseason, they're going to have to hit on a draft pick or two. Latu is going to have to be better than he was the second half of the season. And you're going to have to go on and you're going to have to find a couple guys in free agency. And so I don't know what the actual number is on replacements that they'll need, but to me, it's more than one or two. It's more than we're going to bring in a new defensive coordinator, a couple guys in the draft who are 21-year-old rookies, and we're going to figure things out. That is not the case. Again, Gus Bradley, they ranked, if you just go scoring defense, they were 28th and then 24th in the past 2 years. And they averaged 25 points a game, more than 25 a game last year. The Colts did not need to wait around on Gus Bradley. And if it doesn't work out here with this entire group, Steichen and Lou and Ballard and everyone, you're going to point back to that. Mm-hmm. And, you've had two. You could have had, this could be year number 2 with a new defensive coordinator. Instead, it's year number 1. You got anything else?
No, it'll just be interesting when the free agency comes around how much they address. Does anybody from the Bengals defense come with Lou Anarumo? I don't know. Is there anybody available that he's like, we need to try to get this guy and try to install my defense?
Appreciate Chris. They're from Cleveland Heights. That's it. Ohio.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Well,
the guys from Ohio, they tell you they're from Ohio.
I'm optimistic for the hire. I just hope the Colts are actually going to put their foot on the gas and help him build his defense, because you need to do it in short order, like we discussed.
Well, they had to get somebody. They had to upgrade. At least they upgraded there. All right, he's there in Paris. Now, we have been told maybe a little bit of a shorter segment, practice starting, that sort of thing. They went to go see the Eiffel Tower this morning. Pacers head coach Rick Carlisle, he joins us next. Coming up in about a half an hour, Mike DeCourcy will join us. We haven't talked to Mike DeCourcy in the better part of a couple months. Cannot wait for that. We'll keep all the basketball conversation, obviously the national title game, and everything else. We'll keep hitting on that as we go this morning. But it's a Tuesday. It's 8 o'clock. You know what that means. Pacers head coach Rick Carlisle joining us here on the Payless Liquors Hotline. Coach, it's a good afternoon for you. It's a good morning for us. How's everything going over there in Paris?
It's chilly over here. It's cold here like it is, I guess, everywhere else in the world right now. I know it's very cold in Indy, so we hope people are staying warm back home.
Yeah, I know. We get in our cars every morning. I think it was 4 degrees today. I think it was 1 degree yesterday. Well, I saw you guys were out at the Eiffel Tower earlier this morning for us. What sorts of things have you guys been able to do over there besides getting ready for a couple basketball games?
Well, we took off on Sunday evening. We probably took off around 10:45 p.m. We landed in Paris yesterday, which was Monday at around noon. We went over to the gyms in the afternoon for about an hour and a half and did a light workout. And then last night we were pleading with everybody to please stay awake yesterday, so that
right.
If you go take a nap when you get in the afternoon, your sleep thing gets all messed up for the whole time you're here. So I think our guys did a pretty good job, and today everybody's feeling a lot more refreshed. We're at the gym right now, getting ready for our practice. We have the NBA here. This is really a lot like a final setup. The first 30 minutes before practice is media availability, and the first 30 minutes of practice is open to the media. So it's just like being in the finals, and then we'll have a good practice today, a pretty vigorous one. Probably taper down a little bit tomorrow and get ready to play on Thursday.
Yeah, again, the game's coming up on our time at least. 2 o'clock on Thursday, noon on Saturday against the Spurs. We'll have them both right here, 93.5, 107.5. The fan, Rick Carlisle, with us on the Payless Liquors Hotline. Well, Coach, let's jump into it because, looking at the social media, it looks like you guys are having a good time, but obviously a couple basketball games, and lately, we've been following this, talking to you every Tuesday as the wins just kind of piled up. 8 out of 9 now for your team. What's the why behind that? Why are you guys playing so well? What do you like about what your team is doing right now?
Well, we've gotten healthier. That's one obvious thing. And we've spent a lot of time really over the last year working on becoming a better defensive team. And I think over the last 10 or 11 games, we're number 3 in the league in defense. And, our guys have bought into the importance of it. And we're certainly going to be challenged at a high level against San Antonio with Victor in the middle. So we've got to keep working on that stuff. And, the work goes on. I mean, we've got a break. I wouldn't say it's a break in the schedule, but we've got better spacing this month. We don't have any back-to-backs in January. And so we're trying to take advantage of that.
What do you like about your defense? Simply besides Aaron Neesmith being we'll get to him in a second. Nembhard being the great defender that he is. You've stressed this with us for the last couple of years. How close are you to where you want to see your team be defensively?
Well, it's an ongoing thing, and we've got to continue to work at it. Obviously, we're trying to be consistently at a high level. Being top 3 or 4 in the league over the last 11 games is progress, but there is never any time that you can exhale with any of this stuff. So we got to keep going with it. And each team presents different, unique challenges. The first Cleveland game last week, we were able to win in Cleveland, and we had a great defensive game. And 2 nights later, they came in and scored, 120 something, 128 or something like that. So, it's never going to be easy in the NBA, and you got to keep your nose to the grindstone and keep going at it.
Pacers head coach Rick Carlisle joining us right now on the Payless Liquors Hotline. Coach, it is a business trip still. You got to get ready to take on the San Antonio Spurs. How do you prepare your team for a guy like Victor Wembanyama on a neutral site?
Well, he presents many, many problems. You're talking about a 7'4" guy that handles in pick and rolls, sets pick and rolls, and he either rolls or pops. He's a guy that comes off pin downs for shots. He is from a diversity standpoint, I've never seen a guy that size that can do so many things offensively and have such a great effect on the game defensively with his legs. So, we got to keep him occupied defensively. We allow him to just camp out in the middle lane and protect the rim. We're gonna have 2 long nights here, and then defensively, we're gonna try to keep it squared up and make it tough on him.
When you're on a long flight like you are to Paris, I know you're trying to keep your body awake and everything like that. How did a Rick Carlisle pass the time on like a 10-hour plus?
It's a long trip, yeah.
To Paris.
Well, I watched a lot of game film on the way over. Watched a lot of San Antonio. Watched our game again with Philadelphia, and you're always looking at things that the team that can get better, those kinds of things, and then you do want to sleep on the plane. So I don't know how long I slept on the plane. The flight was about 7.5 hours. I think I may have slept about 3 hours. And then, as I mentioned, staying awake once you arrive is the big challenge. And so, I feel better today. You hear music in the background. We're in the gym. Our guys are stretching right now, so you guys are right in the thick of it here.
Rick Carlisle with us here. Just a couple more minutes on the Payless Liquors Hotlines. Pacers over in Paris getting ready for a couple games coming up on Thursday and Saturday with the Spurs. The return of Aaron Nesmith. I've been all the way since the beginning of November. It's like adding this great piece here in the middle in late January. 2 games, played about 20 minutes. And I know just not points, 21 points in those 20 minutes, Coach, but it looked like he came in, knew what was going on. It was pretty darn active early on. I assume he's wanting to get in there even more. How is he feeling after the trip, after a couple days, and how do you plan on integrating him even more so back into the lineup?
Well, he's played well. That's pretty obvious. The first game he played about 9 minutes. Second game he played about 11. And, the hope is to build him up gradually. He is feeling good. This was an unusual injury. It took a long time. And we gotta make sure we get him back into it the right way. So it's pretty obvious how he helps us. He helped us with movement, shooting, defense, physicality, speed, all those kinds of things, and we'll look to build on it on Thursday.
Rick Carlisle with us here on the Payless Liquors Hotline. I know you've been asked this already 4 or 5 times. I have an opinion that you're probably going to be tired of being asked about it even more as you go. But, when you add him back, you guys are very healthy. It's the first time you're very healthy. We saw Tyrese come back from that hamstring, groin, and obviously there might be at times an odd man out. In that first half the other night is Jarris Walker. He plays 9 minutes in the second half. So you've been asked about it. What sorts of things will you prep the team for, and is it just simply going to be matchups game by game and how you work this rotation with seemingly 10, 11, 12 guys ready to play?
Yeah, everybody asks this question like it's a big problem that's surfacing, and it's anything but that. It's a great situation because we add more depth. And keep it simple for you. We're going to make the decisions that are the best decisions of the team, and we're going to communicate with all our guys and make sure they're ready. And, in today's NBA, you see a lot of teams around the league right now that are very banged up. We've worked hard to get healthier. It's going to take more work to stay healthy, and we intend to do that.
Pacers head coach Rick Carlisle joining us live from Paris right now. Again, Coach, we appreciate the time. Thank you very much. Last one for me. The NBA has become an international league. Are you feeling that with the fans in Paris right now as you guys arrived?
Well, the Champs-Élysées is coated with banners of the Pacers and the Spurs. This is a very enthusiastic city for basketball right now. Fashion Week, I believe, begins tomorrow here in Paris. So that's always a big event, and so we're right in the thick of things. And our media availability today, as I mentioned, is a big one. It feels like a conference finals or an NBA final. So there's a lot of coverage both nationally in the States and internationally. And I just got done speaking to media people from Serbia and Croatia, Germany, and of course France. And so there's a lot going on. But the game to me has never been healthier. a great opportunity for us to be over here. Our ownership's here. Obviously, our players and a lot of our support staff, and it's an amazing opportunity. And we're playing a good team, and it's going to be a lot of hard work, but we're looking forward to it.
Yeah, Coach, I'm telling you, if you go back to the Olympics, your players know you're in for quite the atmosphere, and tickets for these games are going for like $1,000. I was checking it out on ESPN this morning, so it's quite the hot ticket. And going back to what we saw with the Olympics and Wemby there, I would imagine both on Thursday and Saturday, you guys are going to be in some of the better atmospheres you might be in the entire season until the postseason. Coach, appreciate the time. I know you guys are super busy over there in Paris getting ready for the 2 games and all the media and all the different things you're having to do being ambassadors for the NBA. We appreciate the time this morning. Good luck over there. We'll talk with you next week. Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks, guys. Be well.
All right, there's our conversation with Rick Carlisle. How's that? You feel good about that, Mark?
I feel good that he's a lot warmer than we are today. It's a balmy 33 in Paris.
I would like to go to Paris. Was it KB saying that he didn't want to go?
That was Kevin Bowen turning up. I wouldn't go to Paris.
I'd like to go.
I would absolutely go.
One of the guys was quoted, it's a city of love. I forget which one. Was it Miles Turner, maybe, that said that yesterday? So
they kiss very interesting in French.
Those are going to be interesting story, or oh goodness, not stories. Those are going to be interesting games. I would expect an atmosphere much like we saw during the Olympics, right? Am I wrong?
No, I think, Tyrese Halliburton's probably pointing out like, oh, yeah, it was over. Like, Tyrese Halliburton should be leading the tour, I think.
Probably.
He's very familiar with it, but yeah, that should be a fun atmosphere.
I imagine all those guys have been on some vacation over there at some point. Mike DeCourcy going to join us coming up bottom of the hour. One thing that the coach said there, and I'm interested to see the next couple weeks, Mark, how this conversation goes. And that is the rotation. He said something there, and I got thinking about it when he was finishing up one of his final answers, and that is, with the rotation that they have, you don't see college basketball teams go this deep. You sure as hell don't see NBA teams go this deep. I mean, even last year, if you remember in the Boston series, we thought that was going to be one thing that, in the Eastern Conference Finals, the Pacers could win some games would be because of the depth, right? Mm-hmm. And you saw it with New York and you saw it with Boston, that both those teams, that once they went about 7 guys deep, that was about it. Once you got into, hey, who's the 8th man? Who's the 9th man? You were getting pretty random. That's not how the Pacers operate. And what I find intriguing about the next couple weeks, and probably even, Mark, the next year, or so I'll tell you why here in a second, is, are the Pacers going to fundamentally change what they believe is their greatest strength? And are they going to fundamentally change to where they look a little bit more like some of these other teams? And that is not having the type of depth, but having another, what you would call a frontline, quote-unquote, superstar player. Mm-hmm. And I know one name that we've talked about, the guy that's with the Nets, Cam Johnson, who's averaging, Corbin, you might have to look it up, 25 a game, something like 24 a game. We looked it up last week, something like that. Cam Johnson has been an elite scorer for a bad team in the NBA. And are you ready to offer a Nesmith and an Obi Toppin and multiple picks, first-round variety, to go get another player like that and a guy that you're going to pay big-time money to? And if you do that, then you're going to lose 2 or 3 pieces to make the money work out. How much is he averaging, Corbin?
32.
He's averaging 32 a game?
32 minutes.
Oh, 32
and
minutes.
19.5 points.
Okay,
yeah.
For some reason I thought he was up in the 20s, was Cam Johnson. But, are you going to go add another guy like that that's going to have a big salary, and instead of being 10 deep, you're probably now going to be 7 or 8 deep, which is more like every NBA team. Now, what he said there that I actually agree with, and that is, and I probably should have asked a question this way to get a better answer had I known that he thought of this, because I know Carlisle's been asked this 4 or 5 times already. Hey, what are you going to do? Nesmith is back. Hey, what are you going to do? Who's going to be the odd man out? Jarris Walker the other night against Philly was obviously the odd man out. Is Carlisle's like, hey, this is not a bad thing. Why is it always asked through the the prism, if you will, of it being a bad thing? And for the most part, Mark, I agree with him on that. I don't think this is a bad thing. In fact, I think the Pacers have an easy decision. I think you let this baby ride out this season.
Yeah.
I just do. Now, if there is someone, and this is the problem, if there is someone besides a Cam Johnson out there that you think you can go make a move for, I'm fine with it. I have heard no name that has come up that has made me think the Pacers need to mortgage their one and last final big move on that player.
Yeah, I wouldn't say Cam Johnson is the guy that puts them over the top.
But you would agree that they are to the spot to where they have Siakam locked in long term. They have Halliburton locked in long term. They have these other good, solid players locked in team-friendly deals. You know, Obi Toppin is a team-friendly deal. You're getting a good player for not a lot for a nice amount of money, and if you need to move him, that contract is movable.
Yeah.
You're really going to go move a Mathurin right now? You're going to move, Jarris Walker obviously would be the one you'd have a conversation about. So much of the time, these things work themselves out. You're healthy now, but you're not always going to be healthy.
There's an annual tradition in the NBA that there's going to be a star that wants out of their current team.
Besides Jimmy Butler.
We see what Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler's the latest example.
He is. He's the one.
Could Giannis get there at some point? And would you, mortgage the future to try to make that happen?
Yes.
I think a smaller rotation, if they were to make a Cam Johnson or something like that move, a smaller rotation for the Pacers means you're sacrificing your depth, and it means you're also relying on the health of your players. And we've noticed that the Pacers have been quite banged up lately, and that they kind of like that they have a deep rotation. Their deep rotation for the Pacers, they view that as a strength. I think Rick Carlisle would agree with that they like having that big of a depth that they can go to 10 deep in the bench.
It usually works itself out.
Right. But if they go smaller, you're relying on the likes of Tyrese Halliburton and Miles Turner and those guys to stay healthy more regularly, and that hasn't happened so far, so I could see why they'd say, maybe Cam Johnson would be nice. He's not nice for us right now, so we're going to hang on to our depth and try to if we do offload our depth, we're going to do it for a big-time piece in the future.
And think about this. If you're going to make a move, are you ready to, A, give up on a guy like Benedict Mathurin or Jarris Walker? And if this is a conversation piece, which I don't think it's going to be that much, if you win games, nobody cares, are we going to sit here and cry about Jarris Walker getting 8 minutes? I'm asking people, is that the conversation? Like, do you feel that it's that important that you're willing to have that conversation? I don't feel that way. This team has won 8 of 9. Keep winning games. People aren't going to, that's a losing thing. If you're losing games, suddenly everyone's going to say, well, you drafted Jarris Walker. Why can't he play?
Yeah.
You win 8 out of 9. No one cares if he plays 2 minutes or 21 minutes. In any of these games. All right, national title conversation. Purdue back in action as well. Let's dive into your morning checkdown.
The Morning Checkdown, brought to you by the Barbasol Horizon League Basketball Championships. March starts here at the Corteva Coliseum, March 10th and 11th.
Mark, you know Danny Cannell, right?
Yes, I do.
Former NFL quarterback, Florida State quarterback as well.
Yep.
He leads the charge against the SEC. There was a sign last night, and he got a picture with it. Guy got a front row seat who's an Ohio State fan. Well, he's got like the hair and everything. He's like, I don't know, this guy's in his 50s, okay? He's got the shoulder pads on. Again, this guy's in his 50s with shoulder pads on indoors. He has a sign that says front row, $8,000.
Boy.
Hotel, $1,000. SEC watching from home, priceless.
That is a costly sign.
Guy spent $10,000 to go to the national title game.
You're spending $8,000 on a ticket. I'm staying at the Days Inn or something.
He's probably got the money. 34-23, that's your final. Ohio State gets the win, and they cover the number. This did become an 8-point game at one point there in the fourth quarter. Just couldn't get over the hump, could the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, down 21-7 at halftime. It quickly became 28-0, 31-7, or 31-7, I should say. Notre Dame fights back, not enough. So congratulations to Ryan Day and Ohio State. They win the national championship. Let's get you one piece of sound. Notre Dame player Jack Kaiser's been there forever.
Yep.
Obviously, local influence, 6 years at Notre Dame, and obviously he was tearful after it. Go ahead.
I think when you look at the 6 years I've been here, what I remember is the people. From when I was a small, underclassman, just trying to learn the ways, looking at a Drew White, a Bo Bauer, to being a guy, run with my boys and JD and Marist, and then this year coming back and feeling like I had a chip on my shoulder and getting to meet, amazing guys like Riley coming in and just kind of go on the journey we went on. And to have Coach Freeman, yeah, it's about the people. It's the people that's made this place different, and it just shows where this program's heading. The people in this building are the best, absolute best.
So Kaiser had the 5 tackles last night. Some emotion, obviously, there. You saw a lot of that. Though Will Howard was good for Ohio State. I didn't expect him to run the ball 16 times. Riley Leonard, I think, ran at 17. I felt like 9 or 10 of them were in that first possession. So, again, 34-23, Ohio State beats Notre Dame and wins the national title.
We got Mike DeCourcy coming up on the other side of this break, so we'll power through this real quick. We're going to talk college hoops with Mike DeCourcy. Butler visits UConn tonight. That tips off at 7 o'clock, while Purdue hosts Ohio State. That tips off at 7:30. And then Rick Carlisle, we talked to him just about 20 minutes ago. He is out in Paris with the Pacers. They get ready to take on the Spurs. They're off until Thursday. So taking in the sights and sounds, incling the Eiffel Tower this morning, are the Pacers.
I saw that. Yeah, they're 6 hours ahead of us. Let's take a break. College basketball. How does IU fix it? And, boy, quite the winning streak. Back in the top 10 of the net for Purdue. How have they done it? Mike DeCourcy, he joins us next.
Well, good Tuesday morning to you.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, isn't this Andrew WK?
It is. This song, did you ever listen?
Didn't he disappear?
No, he's still around. He does like Riot Fest and everything like that in Chicago, like once a year.
I thought he hadn't done anything in many years.
No, he's like a speaker now, like a public speaker. He does
like what? Like motivational speaking?
Yeah, like motivational speaking.
Oh, please.
Yeah. Have you? I always remember this song was always like one of the rejoiners for Loveline. Did you ever listen to that back in the day with Dr. Drew and Adam Carolla?
Oh yeah, I did. Loveline. I totally forgot about that.
Stay up late listening to alternative radio, and Loveline would come on, and my parents were like, "What are you listening to?"
Apparently, they still have do they have reruns of the old TRLs that they used to play?
Oh yeah,
on MTV. I thought I saw my wife watching those at one point.
Yeah, I stumble
What are
upon
you doing? It's NSYNC. What are we doing?
I stumble upon that every once in a while, and I'll turn it on, and my wife's like, "Why are you watching that?" I'm like, "I'm hoping like a Britney Spears video comes on or something." Never does.
Didn't she move to Mexico? Don't.
Britney Spears
hang on
is
a
in
second.
Mexico.
I think she moved somewhere. Corbin just kind of gave you a look that I don't like. He gave you.
What was
I
that?
mean, Corbin, you're younger than us. Back in the day, Britney Spears was the conversation. So
yeah.
I am not going to take any slander at 8:30 in the morning. Do you understand what I'm saying, Corbin? You go. You're Kenny Chesney's, okay?
Britney Spears,
you watch that.
Yeah. My wife's like, "Oh, you and Britney Spears." I'm like, "Hey, back in the day, that was it." I mean, she was in the Crazy video.
Yeah.
That was outstanding.
Oh man,
Britney Spears still gets it done. I like her videos that she posts on Instagram where she's just dancing around.
Of course, Corbin's been watching Carrie Underwood's performance at the inauguration yesterday on loop. It's just been on loop, Mark. We kept looking. What are you watching over there, Corbin? And that's been it. It's kind of an odd thing. Huh?
I saw Billy Ray doing like an a cappella version of like "Achy Breaky Heart," which I don't know if I can think of a worse idea.
When did you see that? What, yesterday?
Yeah,
you act like you just saw
Twitter.
that.
Well,
it was on Twitter?
While the national championship game was going downhill. Yeah, I was on Twitter. I'm like, what's this? Oh, no.
Let me ask you this.
No.
How many of our listeners do you think are so happy that Kevin Bowen's Notre Dame Fighting Irish lost? Because I
think there's a few.
Well, just here's the thing, Mark. Marcus Freeman has made them likable. I know that's been like a very ESPN first take question that you throw out there to the panel, or Get Up, they throw that out there to the panel. Has Marcus Freeman made Notre Dame likable? I would say again, there is no again. And that's fine, and that's the answer. But I felt it because I'm not a Notre Dame hater. I don't love them. I just don't care about them.
Right.
I want there to be good games.
I find more of a rooting interest in them only because of Kevin.
Well, that's what I'm getting to.
Yeah.
I don't care if they're I used to care if they're in a conference, and then one day I woke up. I swear to you, I woke up one day and I go, you know what? I have things in my life that I can care about. I am not going to care about if Notre Dame is in a conference. And everyone's like, well, they need to be in a conference. Do you want them to play what? You need that to see them play Louisville and Wake Forest every year in the ACC? Is that going to turn you on if they make the ACC? If they're in the ACC and they make the ACC championship game? So I kind of just gave up on that a little bit. And I'm like, we can make fun of Notre Dame. But when I covered Louisville football, Mark, the times they played Notre Dame, they've rallied like it was the Notre Dame teams of old. Like they were facing Lou Holtz, quite frankly. So KB is such a nice guy that I'm like, he is a fan. He's a nice guy of what has been one of the most arrogant, pretentious fan bases in the history of sports in Notre Dame. And then you have the entire IU football is good. What does that mean for the thousands of people in this area that were IU basketball fans and Notre Dame football fans, right? And so at the very end, I have just played nice this season, and we've had fun with this Notre Dame run that they were down one score with 2-3 minutes to go in the game. So, even though the first 35 minutes didn't go their way, they still made it a game. But I felt the last week or so this movement inside myself, guys, that there were a lot of people listening to us that wanted to see Notre Dame lose 62-7.
Well, they didn't want to see Kevin Bowen in a Speedo was the draw.
Well,
they're like, that was God telling you that Notre Dame can't win the Natty because we don't want to see Kevin Bowen in a Speedo. I don't blame him. I've seen him shirtless.
Here's the thing. We can call him out on this tomorrow. KB makes that proclamation knowing that they're going to be fairly big-time underdogs in the game. I mean, 8.5-9 is in a national title game in football, 2-score game. That is a sizable underdog that we could get all of the love from the Speedo conversation, but he never would have to actually put the Speedo on. And then, before you answer that, I never brought it up on air, and this would be something I don't know what Jake and Jimmy do if they're listening at 8:32 anymore. I hope they're sleeping in.
Probably not.
Doesn't our guy Jimmy Cook play does he play Call of Duty till late in the night? Don't he and Eddie Garrison play video games?
They might.
Yeah, which, hey, that sounds great. There's a part of me that wishes I was still doing that, okay? So they're playing, if Notre Dame wins the national title last night, and at the Fan and in this area, Kevin Bowen was going to swallow up a lot of the love by doing the radio prank or the shtick, if you will, of being in the green Speedo around the circle here, downtown Indianapolis. What does Jimmy do?
I don't know. As a Chiefs fan, I don't know.
Well, no, he's a Notre Dame fan.
Is he?
Well, that's what, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Man,
that's the thing. You need to know that. He would be heartbroken if he heard that.
So Jimmy,
that's my point. KB is absorbing all of the gas baggery around Notre Dame. Jimmy's not absorbing any of it.
Man.
And does Jimmy get a little jealous if Notre Dame would have won the national title and no one would have been like, hey, Jimmy's going around the circle in a Speedo or a thong. It's KB that's in the Speedo.
I know him as Mr. Chief, Mr. Yankee, Mr. Duke basketball.
I mean, which one fits that? Which one fits that mold?
Who's the front runners now? He's a big, Milwaukee Bucks fan. No, Oklahoma City Thunder is Jimmy Cook's team. I don't know.
But what does he do? Like, he's left out in the cold while KB is getting. Yes, he's in the Speedo, but he is being concreted, if that's a word, as the Notre Dame fan at the Fan. And quite frankly, all of Central Indiana.
So are you saying you wanted a double Speedo situation with Kevin and Jimmy running in tandem?
I'm saying I would have brought it up had Notre Dame. If Notre Dame would have won the national title last night, and, if KB, obviously, he'll be back tomorrow, we would have brought up, me and you would have hashed this out on air, we would have brought up maybe there needs to be a tandem running of the Speedo. That would have been thrown out there to Jimmy Cook, who's lost. Like, everyone here is losing weight except for this show. Except for our show. Everyone is losing weight at the Fan. JMB's lost like 60 pounds. Yeah. Jimmy's losing weight. Jake doesn't need to.
Yeah.
We don't work out. This show's not working out at all.
No.
Zero working out.
I get off work and I've got 3 kids at home, and I'm like, work out. Well, when they're in school full time, maybe I'll do a sit-up.
Oh, yeah. It was funny yesterday. My wife was off work, MLK Day. And I'm like, are you taking care of Mason all day, or
what's the plan here?
Yeah, are we doing our normal split, taking care of him?
No, I was at the zoo at like -degree temperature because it was free.
You were at the zoo yesterday?
Yeah, because Martin Luther King Day. My wife's
okay.
Bringing the girls, free day. We went there and went to the Children's Museum. That was a madhouse. That was a madhouse.
Could you have went to a busier place in Indianapolis than the Children's Museum?
I knew we were SOL when like all the parking lots in the garage were like full, so we parked like a mile away.
You had to park a mile away. Yeah, I know exactly where you parked. We got a zoo membership. The in-laws gave us that.
Nice.
So we need to go. Not today. Not when it's 3 degrees out.
No, we stayed in the indoor stuff. So we saw like the penguins. We saw the new chimpanzee exhibit, which was cool. Chimpanzees were doing like tic-tac-toe and like match card games on the computers. I'm like, I can't do it. I'm not. How's he doing that? I can't follow.
Smarter than some of the people you talk to on a regular basis. Yeah.
Yeah. So we did all that stuff, but it was damn cold.
So
are we done here?
We have left a message for Mike DeCourcy. We will publicly demand that he calls us back here at some point. So we'll do that. Reminder, coming up at 9 o'clock, Mo Egger, ESPN Radio there in Cincinnati, has followed around. Obviously, he's been on the Bengals radio network, so he knows Lou Anarumo pretty well. So we'll get his thoughts. We'll dive back into that here in about 10 minutes, just to put a cap on the college football season, Mark. I thought Notre Dame did a fine job. And by the way, Corbin, if he calls in the next couple minutes, just tell him, see if he can do next segment. If not, we'll catch up down the road, or maybe even 9:30. We can see what we can work out with Mike. I thought the 12-team playoff worked out fairly well. And what is going to be interesting this offseason is, are they going to do anything with it? Now, if I'm not mistaken, 2026 is when the contract is up, and 2026 after this next season, the college football power brokers that be, and the Big Ten is obviously one of them, winning back-to-back national titles, and the SEC and all these bowl people and all the college football playoff people, they're all to get together, and they're going to expand the playoff. They are. Yep. They're going to expand the playoff. They'll maybe move some bowl stuff around, but they will make changes to the playoff. Make no mistake about it. They are going to expand the college football playoff. But the question is, for this next year or so, will there be any changes? And, I'll tell you at the very beginning, I'm fine if they don't make any changes for a year. I want to be clear. I'm fine. What's fun about it is, for them to make the change, for instance, that Boise State, you're not going to get to host again. In other words, you win your conference, that doesn't mean that you are hosting and getting that first round bye, right? We saw that this year. So do you think they change it? I'm not passionate either way. I think it should be changed. But again, if they want to play it out one more year and then make systematic changes, that might make sense. But think about this, Mark, and I need to bring this up. I wonder, can you bring up the college football playoff, the actual bracket? Yeah, you can. You can actually on ESPN bring up the bracket. They need, because in this system, again, conference champions got to get, not all of them, but the top 4 seeds got to get the bye, which is how Arizona State, despite being ranked like 15th. They end up being number 4, and it's Boise State who ends up being number 3. The interesting thing about this now going forward, Mark, is these other schools, it's got to be unanimous to change anything. Why would they?
Right. Why would they?
Why? Even if I'm Notre Dame, why would I? If I'm Boise State, it's got to be unanimous. If I'm Boise State, why would I vote to change that it doesn't have to be conference championship winners who get the top 4 seeds and get the bye and get what is supposed to be the easier draw? This year, that wasn't the case. Ask Oregon. Yeah. But why would if I'm Boise State, even if I'm Arizona State and I'm feeling good and we got a good coach and we got a good quarterback and we think we can, we can win our conference, why would I vote along with the SEC and Big Ten? That would be my main question. So I don't see, and I don't know what pressure could even be applied that we would even have a change. I know they want to change, but the problem they had was, and this is what's also fun about it, the Big Ten, probably the SEC is part of this. The SEC did not expect for them to have this kind of showing in the college football playoff. They figured once we get this thing expanded, we're going to take over the college football playoff. And the opposite happened. They didn't take over the college football playoff, and the Big Ten did. And so now that you sold all these teams on a set of rules, how do you go over top of them? I don't know the case. By the way, what did Mike say? Just get on the mic. I saw DeCourcy called. What did he say?
Yeah, he can't be on past 8:50.
Okay, we don't have to worry about it then. That's fine. He's got other stuff to do. It's fine. I was going to ask him, the main thing I was going to ask him was, what does he think of all the hoopla around Mike Woodson?
Yeah.
That was going to be it, because I know Mike Woodson is probably going to get crushed. Back to the football conversation. The Colts get their guy. We'll talk about it. Who's the new DC? Marks has some numbers because he was bored with the college football national title game. We'll get to those next.
Yes, Corbin. Yes.
It's like a Blue Chew read for Mark Dighton here lately. Corbin,
I got
what are you trying to do to this man?
Sudden.
Yeah, he's got second. He's at halftime.
I'm like, I can.
He's ready to go.
Frame by frame, I'm picturing this video.
I'm sure you are. Boy, he liked it.
Room.
Me and Corbin are stunned over here.
I'm getting slander in the YouTube chat. Britney Spears videos. I'm like,
it's a YouTube chat. What do you expect?
And Corbin's saying, well, thank God for auto-tune. I'm like, I wasn't watching for the voice.
Yeah. Corbin does this thing where he just slams every performer that they're not as good as they actually are because the recording producers and masterpiece artists make them sound better. It's like, yeah, Corbin, I don't know how old you are. Where have you been for the last 30 years?
If you were a teenage boy and you'd have a crush on Britney Spears back then, it was always Britney versus Christina when I was younger. Corbin said for him it was Rihanna, and I agree there. Rihanna got it done too. So, we're going down our 90s and 2000s pop stars.
I have nothing to add. This is July. That's July radio.
Yeah,
you guys kind of did a mini June or July radio segment.
Go down to Britney Spears. I went down a Lou Anarumo rabbit hole. I'm gonna go down a Britney Spears.
Which one did you like better?
Well, I can tell you which one I prefer.
Where did you go? Your Lou Anarumo hole that you went down. That's an odd way for me to put it. Mo Egger going to join us from ESPN Radio in Cincinnati coming up at 9:00. What did you do yesterday in preparing for Sweet Lou conversation?
So
that's what I want to know.
I was in the Target parking lot, like I said. I was picking up this order for Ashley. And the Ben Johnson news comes out, the Dennis Allen report comes out, and Lou Anarumo comes out, all right back to back. It was like the dominoes were falling.
It's like 1:00 or something like that.
It was lit in the Target parking lot when it came to NFL breaking news yesterday. So I'm going, okay, let's try to get a Bengals guy out. So Mo Egger's going to join us in about 15 minutes. So I'm starting, watching the college football national championship last night. It's going south for Notre Dame. Game's getting kind of drifting, especially at that 5-play drive to start the second half. I'm like, all right. I think I'm gonna start, looking elsewhere for my entertainment here. So I go down the Lou Anarumo rabbit hole a little bit. I saw the Travis Kelce audio, which we played a little bit and everything like that. He is a more aggressive defensive coordinator than Gus Bradley. That's not saying much. He disguises his looks, but he's also more blitz heavy. So in 2024, the Cincinnati Bengals were 12th in blitz rate.
Okay.
That is much higher than what the Indianapolis Colts were.
They're probably 27th.
In 2023, they're 14th. So they've been right middle of the pack as far as blitz rate is concerned. That is good to see. They're putting some pressure on opposing quarterbacks and offenses. That's good to see. In their Super Bowl run in 2022, they ranked 5th in scoring and were 5th in yards per carry allowed. So they're stopping the run there and everything like that. That is very good to see as well. Not so good in 2024. They were 26th in points allowed, 30th in red zone efficiency.
Bad.
So that's not good.
Well, the second half of the year, they actually averaged, I think the last 6-7 weeks or so, they averaged 17 a game.
Right.
Which was better than the first half of the season, which was terrible. They played a lot of young guys. Again, they tried to go cheap. They tried to say we're going to let guys walk and replenish them with draft picks. And the draft is really, really difficult to nail.
Yes. And especially for defensive sides, if you're not identifying those guys and then developing them, then you can end up in where they've been in 2023 and 2024, where you don't have the horses you had, and you're trying to replicate that like you did in the Super Bowl year, and you're just not getting it. So that brings me to the Colts. Are the Colts going to provide Lou Anarumo the horses he needs on defense to be able to fully implement his system? And it begs to be seen because we've been, we know how
the answer's been a no lately.
Right. We've seen Chris Ballard handle free agency. He doesn't go for the A or the B talents. He goes for C's and D's and tries to fill it in there, which is fine and dandy if you're just trying to, just go in the middle and everything like that. Lou Anarumo is showing you that when he has the horses, he can give you a top 10, top 5 defense. When he doesn't have them, you're in the bottom third. That's not exactly where you want to be. That's not where the Colts want to be, especially if so many guys are on the hot seat heading into next season. So I will be curious to see if Chris Ballard is saying what he said in his postseason press conference about, I'm going to change my mindset and this and that. Does that mean you are more aggressive on day one of free agency? Are you going to be, getting Schefter bombs and everything like that? That the Colts are signing so-and-so in free agency on day one.
Can you imagine if we got a Schefter bomb on this radio show
we very
for the
rarely
Indianapolis
get it,
Colts?
Especially for the Colts. But, that would be a nice change of pace because, again, if you're going to be doing this with Lou Anarumo, I don't think you're just going to the draft board and okay, we're going to take a few defensive guys and we're going to plug and play them this season because it's very hard to rely on rookie guys to just snap of the fingers, they get it, and they're playing, top 10 defense. It's not going to happen. You need to get some veteran guys that have been there and done that can understand a system and implement it properly like Lou Anarumo wants. whether or not they go out there and get them, we were kind of going over the free agency list. It's not the greatest crop of free agents. It's also not the greatest draft. So the Colts, Chris Ballard, Lou Anarumo, they got their work cut out for them as far as turning around this defense and getting it to be potent like it once was in 2022. I'll be curious to see if they can do it. I'm not sure. I'll be openly optimistic.
Yeah,
I don't know if they can do it.
That's kind of where I am. I'm trying to be optimistic about it, and I just what I don't know is, and I'll tell you what, let's play this sound here, Corbin. Let's play Venturi on the defense that I sent you. It's about 60 seconds. It's a little long. So Rick Venturi was on with JMV, and this was last week. And this was this is the most difficult thing with the Colts is Gus Bradley was so bad, okay? I mean, Gus Bradley was a failure here at a level that we need to talk about that. That the defense was such a failure here. From time of possession to they would have these halves of football to where, they were so bad. Like in the Green Bay game, they were so bad in the first half. It's like, well, we got things going in the third quarter. I'm like, you understand by ruining half the game doesn't mean that you come in here in the third quarter and you can make up for everything that you did bad in the first half. So, Gus being as ineffective and as archaic as he was, and Chris Ballard letting it happen makes analyzing this group of players a little bit tricky. Venturi talked about that last week with JMV.
It's very difficult, and I mean this sincerely, and this is I've done for a living my whole life. It's very difficult for me to totally evaluate the defensive personnel on this football team. My gut feeling is it's much better than it's played. But the reason I say that is they just play basically basically a lined up, almost vanilla defense down in and down out. And they're never put in really advantage situations. They're never put in situations where they have the strategic advantage. And they're not very well coached fundamentally. You can see that in their angles and their tackling and things like that. I mean, I just feel like it's better. It's not great. There's not a lot of game changers. That's the problem. That's the whole problem with the team, is the team is not bad roster-wise, 53-man in and out, but it lacks the game changers, guys that turn the game around, particularly on the perimeter on both sides.
Yeah, so that was Venturi last week. And listen, I agree with him. And this is, I guess, here's my worry, Mark. And we need not this. I don't think this is going to happen. Mm-hmm. But you get a new offensive coordinator. I mean, you're going through this with Ben Johnson right now. Now Ben Johnson's different because he's the head coach. But let's imagine Ben Johnson has been somewhere for a couple years. The Bengals are going through this on their defensive side when we talk about Lou, and that is, they're going to energize their fan base by bringing in new blood. To me, if I'm a Colts fan today, I'm happy that we made the move a year too late with Gus Bradley, but this is only the beginning of of moves that need to be made. My worry is if you hear Rick Venturi talk, he says something to the effect of they've been coached so poorly. I'm hoping the Colts don't think we're going to bring in a new coach. And because we've been relatively close the last couple, you know where I'm going with this.
Yep.
Because we've been relatively close the last couple years, that means his better coaching will be the biggest move that we'll need to make this offseason. Mm-hmm. And the reality of
a new voice in the room will do it.
A new voice in the room will be the main thing that will give us the extra advantage in a couple of these games that will make things different. And I think what fans want to see is they want to see better players. They want to see, Latu, he's got to get it going. Right now, Jared Verse, who has taken a couple spots after him with the Rams, looks like a better player than him. Quinyon Mitchell looks like a better pick than Latu. And some of that is unfair. But, next year, if Latu has 4 sacks, what's the conversation going to be? If he has a back end of the year to where there's not much there, what about a guy like Kwity Paye? What about these first round and second round and third round draft picks that have been dedicated to that room? What is that going to look like? So for me, this is the first step. This is step one, but there is a step 2, 3, and 4 that got to be had for this defense to be better. Plain and simple.
The blue chip GM needs to get some blue chip players.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
It's got to have the talent with the coach. It can't be just the coach. The coach is going to give us a couple better chances in a couple games. That gets us over the hump. That gets us back into the postseason. A man who has followed Lou Anarumo basically wherever he's been, Mo Egger. He joins us next. All right, 9 o'clock hour.
Corbin is killing it, by the way.
He is. No KB today. Flying back from Atlanta from the national title game. So we hope he had fun there watching his Irish unfortunately lose, but they can hold their head up high, which I'm sure they're doing as Ohio State wins the national title. We'll keep that conversation going. Coming up in about a half an hour. We'll obviously have the pop quiz later on. Mark, I want you to think about this. If you're a Colts fan today, which playoff team irks you the most? I want you to think, I don't think you're going to know who I'm going to take. So I want you to think about that. We'll get to that in about 25 minutes or so. But we've talked a lot of Lou Anarumo getting the job here as DC for the Colts, and a man who's followed him basically his entire career, the last 6 years there in Cincinnati. Good friend Mo Egger, afternoons there, ESPN 1530 in Cincinnati. Mo, good morning, sir. How are you?
Doing great, guys. What's going on?
Yeah, well, thank you for joining us. I guess I'll just ask you this before we dive into defensive coordinator talk. What'd you think of the game last night? How many Ohio State fans are in your area? I would imagine that's going to be a big conversation piece today.
Yeah, obviously a fair amount. Congratulations to Ryan Day. I think it's one of the more remarkable stories where 2 months ago, nobody around here thought he should keep his job. A lot of folks said they shouldn't even go to the playoff. Many said even if they win a national title, it doesn't matter because they didn't beat Michigan. And here they are standing alone by themselves atop the college football mountain. It at least buys Ryan Day a little time before he starts being asked questions about the Michigan game in 2025. But I think the game played out the way most of us expected it to. There is a talent gap between Ohio State and Notre Dame. The Fighting Irish got off to a great start. But even then, even when it was 7-0 in favor of Notre Dame, you just got the sense the better, more physically dominant team was going to prevail, and that's exactly what happened.
All right, let's talk Lou Anarumo. I know you followed him the last 6 years. And by the way, I would agree with everything you said there about the title game. So 2 years to kind of build a defense, 2 fantastic years in 21 and 22. And then the last couple years, not so much. We know that Bengals defense has also lost a lot of talent the last couple years. How would you describe his tenure there in Cincinnati, and why did it end the way that it did?
Well, I would describe it as a success because he was the defensive coordinator on a team that was carried by its defense to a Super Bowl. For all the credit that Joe Burrow gets and deserves for, moving himself into the upper tier of quarterbacks in the NFL and being the face of the franchise and all the things that are said about Joe Burrow are well earned. When they made the Super Bowl at the end of the 2021 season, it came on the strength of a very good, very opportunistic defense. That was Lou Anarumo's unit. And so I think that trumps any of the recent failures and stands out more than anything in the overall body of work. When you think about those years, why did it work? Well, because the Bengals weren't really spending any money on the offensive side of the ball. All of their key players were under rookie contracts. And so what did they do? They threw money at the defense, and they went out and paid Von Bell and Trey Hendrickson and DJ Reader and Chidobe Awuzie. And they had Jesse Bates, a holdover from the Marvin Lewis regime, who turned into arguably the best safety in the NFL. And it worked. And then what's happened over the last couple of years? Well, they've had to devote more money to offense, the offensive line. Obviously, Joe Burrow. What have they tried to do? They've tried to draft early on defense and replace some of the players that I just mentioned. Took Dax Hill with the idea that he was going to replace Jesse Bates. Didn't work. Acquired Sheldon Rankins with the idea he was going to replace DJ Reader. Didn't work. Tried to slide Cam Taylor-Britt into Chidobe Awuzie's old role at corner as the number one guy. Didn't work. And so that was ultimately Lou's undoing. The inability to get the job done with younger players they drafted is why he's no longer the defensive coordinator here.
Mo Egger of ESPN 1530 in Cincinnati joining us to kind of piggyback off that, Lou. Is that more of a Lou Anarumo issue that he can't develop young guys, or he just didn't have the right young guys in his system to implement his system?
Well, I don't think it's ever any one thing. I think it's fair to say, look, we knew all along when the Bengals, if Joe Burrow panned out, at some point they were going to pay him, and if they did, the blueprint was going to have to be pay offense, draft defense, and it's up to Lou to get the same results he did when they were paying defense and drafting on offense. At the same time, you take any coordinator's best players away, and there's going to be a little bit of a drop-off, right? I mean, Lou told us this. When they were trying to figure out what they were going to do with Jesse Bates, he acknowledged publicly, like, all right, well, my job is going to get a lot more difficult. I ultimately, if you're going to point the finger anywhere, though, I start with the front office because, number one, you could argue they made the wrong decision with Jesse Bates. Number two, the defensive draft choices haven't worked out. Dax Hill has been a bit of a bust. Miles Murphy, who they took in the first round of 2023, had as many sacks as me last year. They just haven't gotten production from their younger players. Does some of that fall on the guy in charge of that unit? Absolutely. But if I was to start and we were to start assigning blame as to why this defense underperformed over the last couple of years, I'll start with the people picking the players in the draft.
How would you describe his coaching style? Because I know fans here, they hated Gus Bradley's passive-aggressive style. They hated the bend but don't break defense. What are fans who are just trying to learn about Lou Anarumo, what are they getting from a coaching style standpoint?
Well, there has been a lot of bend but don't break. Here they call it yards, not points, right? We'll give you yards. We're not going to give you points. When I think of Lou's best defenses in 21 and 22, I don't think of creative schemes. I don't think of hyper-aggressiveness. I think of really sound fundamentally. I think of defenses where it felt like players were always in the right position, where it felt like, coaches always talk about players not trying to do too much. I think of defenses where you didn't see guys trying to do too much. You didn't see missed tackles. You didn't see guys streaking wide open down the field because there was a communication mistake in the secondary. Now, part of that is the Bengals had really good, smart veteran players. But when I think of Lou Anarumo's defenses, that's the first thing that comes to mind. You never watched him and thought, you know what, guys aren't on the same page. Guys don't know what they're supposed to be doing. Guys are deviating from the game plan. That's what I think of. Lou values versatility. He likes to use, specifically in the secondary, he likes to use guys in a lot of different ways. But if you're looking for somebody who is going to come to Indianapolis and suddenly start trying to reinvent the wheel defensively, that's not going to be it. He's got his system. He coaches it well. And when it looks good, when it works, you see a really good, well put together, fundamentally sound defense that's really opportunistic on turnovers and really good in the red zone.
Mo Egger with us, ESPN Radio there in Cincinnati, joins us, Payless Liquors Hotline on this Tuesday. Mo, appreciate the time. Do you think the Bengals go Al Golden now? What do you think?
Sure feels like it.
Yeah.
I think going into last week, it felt like he and Patrick Graham were the two finalists. And I think the fact that it has kind of gone this long would suggest, Al worked for the Bengals. He was Lou Anarumo's linebackers coach in 21 and 22. It certainly feels like it's his job to turn down, and wouldn't surprise me if as soon as today we find out that Al Golden's going to be the Bengals' new defensive coordinator.
And last one for me, what do you think the Bengals do with T. Higgins? Again, this goes back to what you mentioned. You spend so much money on offense, you got to go buy some defense at some point. Paying Joe Burrow and those two wide receivers sounds like that's insanity, but what do you think they do with T. Higgins?
Well, I think if T. Higgins is here, it means that Joe Burrow restructured his contract.
Okay.
That's the part of it that's almost impossible to wrap your brain around because, we don't know if that's going to happen. But when Joe Burrow kicked this conversation in a hyperdrive in early December about, T. Higgins is a need, and he has been asked about it a bunch of times since, and he keeps doubling down on that. He's talked about there being a plan. And so my assumption is Joe Burrow is involved in a plan to keep T. Higgins. That starts with him restructuring his contract. If that happens, then I think he's going to be a Bengal. In the absence of that, I think all of this is a waste of time, and he is going to go hit free agency and see what else is out there. But they keep referencing a plan, and so I guess in the coming months we'll find out what the plan is.
Mo Egger of ESPN 1530 in Cincinnati. Just one more question for me, Mo. I have never had Skyline chili before. I've seen that you are a Skyline aficionado.
Oh, he has to be.
What is your go-to Skyline chili order?
3 cheese conies
Yep.
all the way, which means mustard and onion. And it's not like you live in Los Angeles.
No, I know they're available.
You live 2 hours away.
I've never gone.
Probably one here.
We have one here. It's like 20 minutes
Probably
away.
5 minutes away.
Yeah.
You owe it to yourself.
Okay.
Well, Mo, appreciate the time, brother. I know you're busy this morning. It should be interesting to see what the Bengals do. And obviously, you've been following Lou now for the past 6 seasons or so. Thanks. Appreciate the time. We'll talk with you down the road. Thank you so much.
All right, guys. We'll see you.
All right, there we go. Mo Egger with us. Mo Egger with us, ESPN 1530 there in Cincinnati.
I've heard from Kevin Bowen.
What did he say? Would you text him or what?
I texted him last night. He said, hey, hope you're having fun despite the game.
And you just now got a text
back?
back?
Sorry, had spotty service in there. Thanks for the text. And I said, are you in the air right now? He said, about to take off. I said, people are asking for a Kevin Bowen well-being check.
Okay.
So he is alive.
Okay.
He is well. He's about to take off. I can't imagine he's very happy about to be in the sky, but,
I mean,
he's alive.
it took him 12 hours to text you back?
I know. Well,
I mean,
I can
is
imagine
that
you're in there. You're the food menu, by the way, at that Mercedes-Benz
Go over the
Superdome.
food menu. Do you have it? I have it. I have it marked here if you don't want to.
Let me tell
Go
you this.
ahead.
If you were spending like $8,000 for tickets and stuff,
right?
The saving grace was that the food prices at the national championship game
I have
were
them.
very affordable.
I have them. So if you went to the title game last night, this is what Mark's talking about. Mercedes-Benz Stadium is infamous for this. When they built it, a couple years ago, they made it a big deal.
Fan first is what it's
called. $2 you can get the Coca-Cola refillable cup. You get a water for $2, a pretzel for $2, a popcorn, and a hot dog for $2.
It's all free refills on soda, which that's a big selling point for me right there.
$3 you have nachos with cheese, waffle fries, a pizza slice. $4 the souvenir refillable cup. That's the way to go. $5 a Bud Light draft beer. There can't be a place in the country that's doing that.
Not for a
in
sporting
the world.
event. No,
there can't be.
Not in 2025.
You get a $5 cheeseburger, and the most expensive menu is the chicken tender basket with fries is $6. How about that?
I was looking, I was like, oh, there's a frozen Arctic peach shake. I'm signing up for that. Was $3. You're getting like a super pretzel for $2. There were some good deals to be had there. If I was Kevin Bowen, if I'm watching that game go south, I'm just loading up on like candy and burgers and chicken tenders. $6 for chicken tenders and fries. It's like double that at Lucas Oil.
What is it at Lucas Oil?
It's like $12.
Well, because here's the two ways you
get a whole pizza for $18.
Well, here's the two way. Okay, so if you go to Lucas Oil and you're someone like me, you're going one of two ways. You're going as media, and then you get the media buffet.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you're not eating like the normal fan, the 60,000 fans or whatever the number is that's there. Okay. The other way you go is you've been tailgating and you've been heavily drinking.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, if the chicken tender basket, and this is what they rely on, if the tender basket's $16, who cares?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I've gone. I've not done the media thing. I've always gone. I've been with the common folk, with the fans. I've been in there. So
well, you were there for the Bears game, weren't you?
Usually my daughters and I would go, or if we bring the whole family, it's either chicken tender basket with fries, or we do like the pizza. And I think the pizza is like hot box pizza, or I don't even know what it is these days. But it is one of those options. Where you're going pizza, or you're going chicken tenders and fries.
Is it a Hunt Brothers?
You're getting a souvenir.
That's the old traditional gas station pizza.
Getting a souvenir soda with the Colts logo on it, and you're like, all right, let's go. And then maybe some Dippin' Dots is always on there, too.
It's a bad job. You can't go in there with a family of four and eat from the concession stand.
Well, you can't.
If you do, you're going to spend $100, and there's nothing you can say about it.
Well, we need to make a road trip to the Atlanta Falcons home slate and see what's
you
going
should
on
go.
there. Save a ton of money.
Do the Bears play there anytime soon?
I don't know.
I have no idea.
I should see who the Falcons have in 2025 and see if we need to mark that off our calendar.
You haven't got your season tickets from Ben Johnson yet, have you? You have not done
plan
that.
on doing
it's too
it,
bad.
No.
I didn't think so. Yeah, I did see this last night. I was thinking, that's great. It's great PR, but the reality is if I go as a media fatty, I'm going to go there and I'm going to eat all the different things they have in the media room. And if you go, even if it's a 1 o'clock game, you've been tailgating, you've probably been eating a bunch of crap, right?
Yep.
So I'm not getting hungry until like mid-third quarter. You've been drinking your beers and everything else. That at that point, if you spend $18 on a chicken tender basket, who the hell cares? I just had 10 beers.
The Colts do play the Falcons next year, but it's a home game at Lucas Oil. Yeah, the Falcons are Panthers, Saints, Bucks, Rams, Seahawks, Bills, Dolphins, Commanders. That's a solid slate of games right there, I would say, for a home slate. So I'd circle that Bills game maybe, or the Commanders. See Jaden Daniels in action.
Have you seen the Bills' new stadium?
No,
it looks pretty. It looks pretty nice.
I'm sure it's nice.
Well, I mean, it does. But it's not domed. It doesn't have a dome to it.
No, we've driven through like Nashville, so I've seen like the beginning of the Titans stadium that they're building. That looks pretty solid too. So we'll see what happens there.
I was looking just quickly. It's funny. So Jeremy Fowler did this prediction thing, what's going to happen next year, or what's going to happen in the offseason and next NFL season. Do you want me to read some of these? Give me a yes or no for these.
Okay.
Sam Darnold's going to be a Raider. Does that move the needle for Mark Dykton? No. You can say
not
no.
really, no. Thank you, Corbin.
It's fine. Aaron Rodgers retires. I don't
Yes.
think that's the case.
I would like to see that
I think
happen.
he'll be a Steeler. He is
I actually do want him to come back and just get pounded into the ground one more time.
Well, I mean, listen, he played well the final several weeks, which is
when no one gave a bleep.
When no one gave a bleep.
And they were out
a
of it.
year and whatever it was away from having his Achilles taken care of. The Steelers will sign Justin Fields. Jaden Daniels will make an MVP run, and then there's other ones like the Bears will sign Trey Smith. Like, okay.
Okay. Then now we're getting into the weeds here.
That's talking about a guard
Right.
in the NFL.
I mean, you do need some offensive line help. That wouldn't move the needle.
His other one is the Colts will end 11-year AFC South drought.
Okay. I could get down with that.
How about that? A quote from a high-ranking NFL official. They've drafted pretty well, so the roster isn't barren. Adding a few more pieces and supporting the quarterback could go a long way, and that division is very winnable.
I mean, that's all true, but the quarterback also has to be able to find the targets that you're signing and everything like that.
It's also, isn't that the same thing as they said last
Yeah,
offseason?
exactly. and we've gone over this. Their schedule is not exactly easy. Their away schedule is brutal. You got like five of the 8 are playoff teams this year. So, I mean, the Colts if they're gonna make a run in the AFC South, it'd be nice to just win the season opener.
Well,
start out with that.
More than
Maybe
not,
beat the Jaguars in Jacksonville.
more than not,
baby steps.
the better quarterback wins.
Yeah.
And the Colts don't have the better quarterback. And until they listen, I know Colts fans, I'm preaching to the choir here, but Lou Anarumo, it's nice, and we talk about free agency, and we talk about what can Chris Ballard do in the draft, and all these are great discussions. I'm not saying they're bad discussions, but the number one discussion is Anthony Richardson.
Of course,
and
it should be.
And it's not close. And if AR is going to develop into the quarterback that they were hoping 2.5, 3 years ago, and that we're all hoping for, it's going to happen this year.
It has to happen this year.
Yeah, it's going to happen this year, or it's not going to happen. And you know that doesn't mean he can't go somewhere else or eventually become a fine quarterback. But at some point, we know when a guy is kind of that guy. Now, here's what I will also say, Mark. A lot of Colts fans have been hiding behind the year number 3 rhetoric. Hey, Josh Allen, it took him a while. Okay? We talked about that. In other words, you could look at Anthony Richardson. You could say, wow, look at the first couple years. And then you start to analyzing Josh Allen's first couple years. And there's another guy, too, that they kind of fit the mold. And I never really cared for that conversation very much, but I understood it. If you remember year 3 of Josh Allen, he threw for more than 4,500 yards. Okay? He had a QB rating of 107, and he had a QBR of 77. And then on top of it, he had 8 touchdowns and over 400 yards on the ground. Next year, the Colts fan, if Anthony Richardson does not come to play, they are going to lose their greatest argument. And that is, well, it took to year 3 for Josh Allen to get it.
Yeah.
I mean,
if the lights don't turn on.
Yeah, well, if the lights don't turn on, that is the greatest argument, because right now there's no argument for Anthony Richardson. He has not been good. He has not been healthy. We are relying on a last-second drive against the Jets and the Patriots. That is what we are hanging our hat on.
Handful of plays.
We are hanging our hat on a play in a loss where he threw the ball to Alec Pierce. I almost said Antonio Pierce. To Alec Pierce.
I wish Antonio Pierce.
And so that is kind of the discussion that I find interesting, is you can kick the can down the road to, well, Josh Allen figured it out in year 3, which is true. He did figure it out in year 3. And now for Anthony Richardson, we're coming up on year 3.
And Chris Ballard has also kind of stated in his postseason press conference, like, we need to start seeing him stay healthy for a majority of the games and start seeing him hone in on his skills and everything like that.
I legit don't know. I don't know who you bring in.
It is put up or shut up time when it comes to Anthony Richardson, because it's not only just you need to see it after 3 years. The Colts have some financial decisions that need to start being made as we get closer to this rookie contract being done. I think they were hoping to have a lot more answers than they do right now. I think they have more questions, quite frankly, than they have answers. And you're going to have to figure out, are we picking up his 5th-year option? Are we potentially talking about contract extension? That almost seems unfathomable to me right now
I don't,
where we're at. But it's a lot of questions.
I can't even talk about that right now.
Nothing better than put up or shut up time in a critical year 3 where your GM, head coach, and quarterback are all on hot seats. And you're like, everybody have the best year you possibly can.
Yeah, you better.
Yeah, that's what's coming
Again,
down to.
4,500 yards for Josh Allen, year 3. And I know they're not the same player, but I want to be clear. This is how it's been sold to the fan who's been uneasy about Anthony Richardson. One of the selling points has been, but Josh Allen in year 3, he figured it out. These two guys, their stats are relatively the same through a couple years in the NFL. What can you do in year number 3? Let's head to a check down here before we die. We got what pop quiz still, and then I have an NFL question on the other side I want to throw your way as well. Let's hit a morning check down, Corbin.
The morning checkdown. To the Freeman on Legacy Ball Championships. March starts here at the Corteva Coliseum, March 10th and 11th.
All right, boy, I tell you, it's going to be a long wait for college football. It's always sad when college football ends. The NFL's winding down, last couple games there. College football ends last night, 34-23. That's your final. Ohio State over Notre Dame. Notre Dame down in this one, 21-7 at halftime. It got down 28-7, 31-7. It looked like it was over. They came back a couple minutes to go. They had it down to 8. They had a chance, could not get over the hump. Here's Marcus Freeman postgame.
We obviously didn't play the way we needed to get the outcome we want. But as I said to the guys in the locker room, there's not many words to say when everybody's hurting. I'm just proud of them. I'm proud of what they've done. I'm proud of who they are, the way they represent themselves. And it's just an honor to be on this journey with them. There's going to be a lot of guys, seniors, that this was their final game with Notre Dame football, but they've left this place a better place.
Yeah, I think Notre Dame, if you're a Notre Dame fan, you got to feel a lot better than you did. I do feel that way. Doesn't mean you're always going to be back in the national title hunt, but if you told me the next 5 years that Marcus Freeman had them in the playoff 3 out of 5 years, 4 out of 5 years, I don't think I would be too surprised, especially coming up in 2 years. They're going to make it a 16-team playoff anyway.
Yep.
Will Howard, good last night, 231 yards, couple touchdowns for the Buckeyes. He also ran the ball 16 times, especially at the end. So it comes to an end, 14-2, Notre Dame losers in the national title game.
We talked to Rick Carlisle live from Paris earlier in the show. That'll be up on the podcast later. They are getting ready to play a pair of games against the San Antonio Spurs coming up starting on Thursday, so you can find that on the podcast. Elsewhere on the college hoops court, can Purdue make it 8 straight wins tonight? If they do, it'll be against the Buckeyes. The Boilermakers host Ohio State tonight at 7:30. After that, kind of a big stretch for Purdue basketball coming up. You've got Ohio State tonight.
Okay.
Michigan on Friday.
Okay.
And guess who's up next week? Mike Woodson in Indiana going to Mackey Arena next week.
Is that a tough game? Away from home with this team,
say,
Indiana?
I would say those are 3 games circled on the Purdue Boilermaker calendar right there.
I would imagine Malik Renew back for that
I would think so.
game. I say that, I would imagine. So, yeah, we'll see. Again, Purdue's they were almost like 30 in the net. They're now top 10 in the net. And just to make it a rivalry thing, if you're an Indiana fan, you got to be sick to your stomach. They lose Zach Edey, even a guy like Mason Gillis.
Yeah, they haven't really. Yeah, it's not.
And they're a top 10 team in the net. They have double the quad 1 wins you do already.
So Purdue, Ohio State, that tips off tonight at 7:30. Meanwhile, Butler visits UConn. That's going to be a tough one. That one tips off for Thad Matta's crew tonight at 7.
I need to look that up. UConn just lost to somebody this weekend. Who did UConn?
I forget who they lost to.
I'm blanking. UConn lost this weekend. Hang on, I got to look it up now. I got to know who UConn lost to. They lost to Creighton. They lost 2 out of 3, actually. They lost to Villanova, too, which is not a good loss.
Butler, let's go.
UConn's not, if they make a run at the national title this year, boy, some things are going to have to happen in front of them for that to happen. All right, coming up on the other side, I asked Mark Dighton which team, and Corbin, you think of it too, which team being in the playoffs or just, the way that team plays, I'm not going to really give you any guidelines. Which team irks you the most if you're a Colts fan? We'll get to that, plus a pop quiz. We got you to 10 o'clock right here. It's 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
Corbin getting all of like the hot pop stars in today.
Who's this? I'm not even listening. Oh,
Shakira.
Okay.
Her hips don't lie. Did you know that?
Yes, I had no idea who this was. No offense to Corbin, but, it's either this or it's Hall & Oates.
I'll take this.
Yeah.
You give me Britney, Rihanna, and Shakira.
Something
that's a trifecta I'm a
something
fan
that
of.
gets you going in the morning. Pop quiz coming up in about 15 minutes or so. Appreciate Rick Carlisle joining us, as well as Mo Egger joining us from ESPN Radio there in Cincinnati. Check them out, both on the Podcast Center, 1075thefan.com. All right, so before the break, I posed this your way, Mark, and that is, when you look at the playoffs. And so you can go back to, obviously the Texans and the Chargers. You can go to the Chargers if you want. That might be one. That might be the one you're at. I ask you, who in the playoffs this year? Because if you're a Colts fan, you're frustrated, and it might be the Texans. You're frustrated that the Texans have now turned things around, that they were able to kind of nail a draft or two, get a guy like Will Anderson, you go get a guy like C.J. Stroud,
Diggs.
Steph. Then you go in free agency, and Daniil Hunter, Steph Diggs, obviously a couple different names, and they have done a good job fortifying their roster that they know they still have. Obviously, they're actually one of the more interesting teams this offseason to see what they do. To try to keep the AFC South and to actually get over the hump. They've been able to win a playoff game, but that second game, they didn't look like they belonged on the same field sometimes as the Chiefs. So I'm asking you, I'm interested in your answer. If you're a Colts fan, you have to be irked by some of these teams.
Yep.
Okay, that are in the playoffs, and you're not. Some of these teams like the Texans that just a couple years ago were crap, and now they're not. So what did you come up with during the break?
So
What's your team?
I can go the couple different ways. I took your question originally as the final four teams available.
Oh,
so
you can pick any of them.
With those available, I would pick the Buffalo Bills because I would say we just talked about it. The Josh Allen, Anthony Richardson comp. You're seeing him do
it's fine.
More with less, I would say, talent-wise. You lost Steph Diggs. You lost a couple other wide receivers. He's doing more. He's getting the most out of the teammates around him than what Anthony Richardson is there. They could say the same on defense, that they're also getting more out of what is a lesser roster talent-wise. So they're in the AFC Championship game there. If you're not sick of the Chiefs, I understand. But also I could see if we're going full spectrum for the
who
playoffs,
isn't sick of the Chiefs?
If we're going full spectrum for the playoff bracket, I would say the teams that would probably irk Colts fans the most are either the Texans, because, again, the division was lost with 4 weeks to spare, and the Texans were limping into the playoffs. I would also say the Commanders and Broncos, because they have two young quarterbacks that were taken a year after you selected Anthony Richardson, and they are showing a lot more in that rookie season than Anthony Richardson has shown in 2. So I could see where you're like, if only we didn't wait so long to address the quarterback position in the first place. Maybe we didn't have to take a quarterback in 2023. We could have waited a little more. But instead, we were back against the wall. We had to take a quarterback with our fourth overall pick. So we took Anthony Richardson, who was the biggest project, I would say, in almost NFL draft history as far as a quarterback perspective.
That's a nice word to use.
And the year later, you have Caleb Williams, you've got Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix, Drake May. You've got these guys who are all hitting in their respective teams, and you're sitting there in did we go a year too early? Did we pull the trigger 1 year too early?
And some of these teams went out and they drafted a wide receiver who had more than a couple catches. And A.D. Mitchell is a part of that. So the reason I brought it up is, I've been thinking, being a Giants fan, I thought, who irks me the most?
Oh, I know who that answer is.
Okay, here's the thing. Is it a team like the Philadelphia Eagles? Let's say the Texans were a better team. Okay, let's say the Colts were in the same division as the Chiefs, okay? Or the Texans were, you went into this year not really thinking the Texans were going to win the Super Bowl, right? That's fair in the AFC. I looked at it and said, it's not the Eagles. If I were a Colts fan, I would look at it and say, I'm not irked that the Kansas City Chiefs look like yet again they may be there in the Super Bowl representing the AFC. I'm looking, and you brought up the two teams I was just thinking of. So you could be irked that, it's the Chiefs, it's them again, it's the Ravens, and even though they lost, who doesn't think that they won't be right back there last year, right? Or next year with Lamar Jackson. And it's not the Bills, even though it's Josh Allen and they're great, and we understand how good of a player he is, and the Buffalo Bills used to be a joke, and they used to be middle of the road, and now they're not. It's all of these lesser than teams that have passed you. And to me, the one I'll go to is Washington. And I mean that for me personally, and I mean that for a Colts fan. This was a team, Mark, we've had fun with this. It's the only team on the road in primetime that Daniel Jones could beat was the Washington Commanders. They had to change their name. They had to go through decades of having the most embarrassing owner in the NFL, in professional sports. I mean, there's, Donald Sterling was up there, obviously, at one point, and there's 2 or 3 guys that are always near the top of the list. But Daniel Snyder was the worst, and he was so bad. Reminds me a little bit, actually, of the Mets. There's like 3 or 4 franchises. The Clippers fit this mold several years ago when Donald Sterling left, that the ownership was so bad, it was so offensive in different ways, obviously, was so offensive that when they were gone, a black cloud was literally lifted off the franchise. And I am not saying that's what's going on with Jim Irsay, but what I am saying is Colts fans are right now frustrated with their owner. And when you get into the frustration with the owner, that's bad. Mark, you know that as a Cubs fan.
Yep, and as a Bears fan.
And as a Bears fan. But, the Cubs...
And as a Bulls fan.
Well...
Yeah, or former Bulls fan, I should
it's
say.
It's the 3 horsemen, yeah. But, Chicago, you know what? That's a better way to put it. Chicago as a city is having to deal with that.
Yeah.
That the ownership group around the Bulls, if it was lifted, you would feel... you would feel so much better. If the ownership was different with the Chicago Cubs, you would feel so much better about things. I'm not including the Bears. They just hired Ben Johnson, who I know you love, and I actually think they have a coach and a quarterback, and they have a roster that's not too bad. If you told me they were really contending next year, I wouldn't be against it. But Washington has been such a bad team with just a string of bad coaches and bad ownership and a bad nickname that they had to change it in a crappy stadium, and they get Jaden Daniels, they build a roster, they get a competent coach, and they're in the NFC Championship game.
Magically.
So for me, and I think even for you, you could look at these big-time teams and these teams that have now been good for a number of years. You say, it's the Ravens, it's the Chiefs, it's Lamar Jackson, it's for me, it's the Eagles, right? The Eagles. I could be frustrated that the Eagles are this good, that they're in the NFC Championship game. But if I'm a Colts fan, that's not me today. I'm looking at all these other teams, and you mentioned the Broncos. It's a great one. The Denver Broncos, because of what they did with the Russell Wilson deal, which is obviously one of the worst deals that's ever been done in the history of the NFL. Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson are terrible deals, okay? But the Broncos are smarter than the Browns, so they're able to navigate their way around their terrible deal. And they go and they draft Bo Nix, and they don't spend a top 5 pick on drafting Bo Nix. They don't trade 14 different number 1 and number 2 picks to get Bo Nix. They go get Bo Nix. And they have a defense, and they have a solid defense. And they have Vance Joseph, who's a defensive coordinator who is way better than Gus Bradley, and they're in the playoffs.
Yeah, I can see where as a Colts
that would irk
fan,
me if I'm a Colts
you're
fan.
Looking around, and yes, like you said, the upper echelon teams, you're kind of like, okay, we're not in that stratosphere right now. But when you're seeing guys like the Commanders and the Broncos come up with younger quarterbacks that were taken a year after you drafted your quarterback,
that's what
you're
has
kind
to
of
kill
looking
you.
around, and you're kind of like, oh no, what's happening now? Like the Broncos, I'm assuming they're going to build around Bo Nix a lot more next season. So are they a team that's also going to leapfrog you as far as in the AFC when they're only 7 spots available? You're like already looking around like, okay, the Chiefs, the Ravens, the Bills, the kind of the teams that are always in there. Plus you got the Texans in your division. Now all of a sudden you have to worry about the Broncos as well. Are the Steelers going to get, reinvigorated now and everything like that? So all of a sudden, if you're in the AFC, you're looking around like, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 6 teams already. Can we leapfrog one of those? What's going on?
Not to mention, there might be someone bringing this up. The Chargers have 5 fans.
Yeah. But the Chargers are good. Jim Harbaugh's turned that team around and got them in the playoffs.
I mean, they had to win this year just by running Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins.
Yeah.
They're certainly going to get better.
Yeah.
Their jumping off point was playoffs. That's so when we talk about Lou Anarumo and everything that goes into that, coaching absolutely matters. Jim Harbaugh getting there, coaching matters. But they also went out and they got Ladd McConkey.
And you also got
their first round pick played well. And we didn't have to make excuses. Well, it's a rookie, you know how rookie years are. No, that's what we're doing.
Well,
we're doing that with Leatu Latu, and we're doing that with A.D. Mitchell. Well, it's a rookie, and we knew coming out of college that it was going to be a project. And we've done all these qualifiers. Meanwhile, other teams in the NFL, Commanders, Chargers, Broncos, Texans, those are just 4. I expect the Bengals again next year to be contending. If they beat the Patriots in week 2, they make the postseason.
Yeah. I was going to say the Bengals.
Go ahead,
the Bengals had an off year, so there's another team that you're adding there. Jacksonville is going to hire a new head coach. They've got a top pick right there. The Titans have the number 1 overall pick. So could the Titans all of a sudden leapfrog? Then you've got to look. There's other teams. So there's teams that are in the AFC alone. They start looking around like, we really need to make some improvements here. If it's really put up or shut up in 2025, you've got to really go out there and swing for the fences on a couple things, whether that's in the NFL draft or if that's in free agency. You really got to hit, and you got to hit not just singles. You need to
you got to hit some triples.
Maybe a home run here or there.
They're going to have to draft 2 guys that they're going to be able to play immediately.
Yeah, it'll be a fascinating offseason.
Not everyone's going to get 17 games to figure out if they can play in the NFL.
No.
The last thing I'll say before we get to a pop quiz, and I mean this will be my battle cry because I believe the Chiefs beat the Bills on Sunday. I don't know how you guys feel. I hope Buffalo wins. I want to be clear. I want Buffalo to win. I will be cheering for them. Josh Allen is 0-3 in the playoffs against Patrick Mahomes in the Chiefs. That's the way I'm leaning. I still think KC wins. And if so, Mark, shame on the AFC for not having. This one time, Mark, this one time that the Bengals beat them, Joe Burrow and company are still living on that. This is 3 years ago.
Yeah.
They're still living on that. Well, Lou Anarumo, what's the first thing we said about Lou Anarumo? Well, he went to Kansas City, and what was it? Was it 22? It wasn't 21. It was 22, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I went in there in 2022 and got the win over Pat Mahomes, and that is valuable. I'm not acting like it's not. It's definitely a feather in his cap. It's one reason, among many why you like him, but I've been laughing at that the AFC is living off that. The Bengals one time went in there and got the win.
They should hang a banner in their
come
stadium.
on. I'm telling you, if the Bills don't win this year, I'm not sure it's going to happen.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that it's going to someone, come on, AFC.
Somebody.
And it's just going to be terrible for me too, guys. I'm going to need the Chiefs to win, to beat the Eagles. And that's sick. I don't want that to happen.
It's sick.
Mark, it's sick. I don't want to root for the Chiefs to win 3 in a row and have Taylor Swift up there and that be a big conversation and have Patty Mahomes and Andy. I used to hate Andy Reid, but I can't have Saquon Barkley win.
Well, then you're putting on Commanders gear this Sunday, right?
You're damn right I am.
Yeah.
You better believe it. The dream for me would be Commanders and Bills.
Yeah. I think a lot of people would be fine with that.
That's
Nice
the
change of
opposite
pace.
of what's going to happen. Have you guys looked at the pop quiz?
I have.
What did Scotty do
It's
today?
not terrible. There's some national championship questions in there.
Okay.
I'm looking at it right now. There's at least 3 of 5 are related to the national championship.
So I think there's 3 on here that, the guy that calls in, he's not going to go 0 for 5 and look like an idiot.
No,
Okay.
I don't think so.
There we go. 317-239-1070. 239-1070. Pop quiz coming up next. I'm a little disappointed in the national media, Mark. Oh, really? You may
Why so?
Yeah, you may wonder why. They're supposed to have articles ready on who's going to win the national title next year.
Oh, I was seeing odds already.
Well, I would imagine Ohio State's probably pretty close to the top of that
They were
list.
pretty close, if I recall. I think Notre Dame was like mid-tier, mid-tens or something like that. They dropped. It was like plus 1,200.
Yeah, the biggest question will be for Notre Dame. Obviously, the national title game last night, we've talked a lot about it, will be, what do they do at quarterback? Steven Jelly has been there. I need to check. I know KB would know. Is he a junior? Yeah, actually, he'll be a senior next year, I believe. I never know with, guys are on campus for how long? In other words, does he have 2 years of eligibility? Is it just 1 year? I know Colin Cowherd, I think, was one of the guys, but there were a couple people that thought maybe, Quinn Ewers from Texas, some schools wanted him, including maybe the two teams last night in Ohio State and Notre Dame. So would he go back to college for another year? I can understand why he went to the NFL. This is not a good, at some point, you got to start earning professional money. That would be one thing. And the quarterbacks in this NFL draft, not great when you talk about at the top of the draft, I like Cam Ward enough, Shedeur Sanders, obviously, but who's that third guy that's there? The Penn State quarterback, I'm blanking on his name now. He kind of stinks. He kind of stunk it up at times this year, but, there were teams that were like, hey, if you come out, there's a good chance you'll be a first rounder, and there's a good chance you could be the third quarterback taken. So I understand why Quinn Ewers went, but, to me, it's all about quarterbacks. And, Steve Angeli, I don't know too much about him. He played well when Riley Leonard got injured against Penn State, but that was, 6-7 plays? Something like that. It was a drive. Was it even 2 drives? I don't think it was. He's waited his time. That doesn't always mean you wait your time and you go back to the national title game. How Notre Dame finds yards without running their quarterback will be interesting as well. Riley Leonard is an elite head down, almost Tebow-esque.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put my head down and I'm gonna run. So good stuff last night.
2026 national champion odds from last night. Ohio State, no shock, is the favorite at plus 450. Texas and Oregon both at plus 650. Georgia plus 700. Penn State plus 850. Notre Dame 6th at plus 1,200.
If the Colts win 5 games next year, is it going to be sad to watch Arch Manning go somewhere else?
The whole march for Arch and all that stuff. You can wish it all you want, but
I think he's going to be pretty good.
I tend to think the Mannings might say.
I think he's
go somewhere else.
I think he's going to be pretty good.
Yeah,
I think Arch Manning probably. And he's done it like the old school way, so people can't even get mad. No. He stuck around. He sat there for 2 years. He sat there for 2 years and waited for Quinn Ewers.
He didn't do it.
He helped their team winning games this year. All right, I'm going to let you choose. 239-1070, Mark. Usually I'm the one that gets to do the dirty work here, so you go ahead and do it.
Let's go fast fingers today. Who we got?
Caller number 1. Who do we have?
That is Adam.
Adam, good morning, man. What's up?
Adam, what's happening?
I'm doing well. How are you guys doing?
We're good. National title game last night, Ohio State, Notre Dame. Did you care?
I did care. I was rooting for Notre Dame. I was just happy that they made a push at the end and made it interesting. But Ohio State just had too much star power.
Yeah. Again, no safety help on that final, play. Jeremiah Smith, he's pretty good. He may actually be a question here. So let's try to get a winner on this Tuesday, Adam. Let's hit the music, Corbin. Let's go. All right, question number 1. Ohio State, college football's national champion after beating Notre Dame last night. The Buckeyes are the first champions of the 12-team college football playoff era. Who was the first champion of the 4-team college football playoff era? Was it Ohio State, Alabama, Florida State, or Clemson?
Man, I'm gonna go with Alabama just due to the odds of the number of championships they've had. So I'm gonna go with Alabama.
All right, I'm gonna give you your mulligan here. Don't overthink it. That will be my hint. Don't overthink it.
Ohio State.
There we go.
All right, Adam. Ryan Day is the 5th head coach at Ohio State to win a national championship. Woody Hayes is the only Buckeye head coach to win multiple national championships with 3. Which of the following head coaches never won a national title at Ohio State University? Paul Brown, Urban Meyer, Jim Tressel, or Earl Bruce?
Earl Bruce.
There we go.
That's a name he didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I would have done as well. Hey, Trussell won. Urban Meyer won. Obviously, Paul Brown.
Mm-hmm.
Question number 3. Name the last player to win the Heisman Trophy and the college football national title in the same season. Was it Jameis Winston, Bryce Young, Devontae Smith, or Derrick Henry?
Oh, man.
That's a tough one. I'm
going to say Bryce Young.
All right. The Baseball Hall of Fame class of 2025 will be announced this evening.
Oh, is that tonight?
Yeah.
Ugh. So people are going to be complaining about guys not making the Hall of Fame?
I'm
Great.
sure.
Okay.
I'm sure.
Good.
Ichiro Suzuki and CeCe Sabathia are the headliners among players on the ballot for the first time. Longtime reliever Billy Wagner is on the ballot for the 10th and final time after falling just short of the required 75% threshold last year. Wagner would become just the 8th player to be elected to the Hall of Fame in his final year of eligibility with the baseball writers. Who was the last? Fred McGriff, Larry Walker, Edgar Martinez, or Tim Raines? God bless you if you know this.
Oh gosh. Can you say the options again?
Fred McGriff, Larry Walker, Edgar Martinez, or Tim Raines?
I say Larry Walker.
All right, last one. We got to go quick here. On this day in 2007, the Colts beat the Patriots 38-34 in the AFC Championship game. Of course, going to Super Bowl 41. Which of the following Colts did not score a touchdown in the game? Peyton Manning, Dan Klecko, Ben Utecht, or Jeff Saturday?
Jeff Saturday.
All right, appreciate it. Adam, not too bad.
Solid
What did he get? He got 1, 2. He got 3 out of 5. The ones he missed, it's Devontae Smith. He won the Heisman in 2020. Also won the national title with Alabama. Interesting note in that game, the touchdown he scored in that game in 2020. The same play that they used for Jeremiah Smith.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah, how do you like that? I figured. So that, and then number 5, Ben Utecht is the one who didn't score. If you remember, Klecko scored, Manning scored, and Jeff Saturday had the fumble recovery.
Manning with that 1-yard run people forget about.
All right, we're out of here. Jake and Jimmy coming up at noon, JMV at 3. Have a good afternoon.